I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Dr. Betty Bonner, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Sheila Taylor, Michelle Akateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Catherine Sells to lead us in prayer.
Please bow with me if you choose. Heavenly Father, as we bring this school year to a close, we pause to thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for walking with us through every challenge and every success. You've guided our students, our teachers, our staff, and our families, and for that we are grateful. We lift up our students as they head into summer. May their days be filled with joy, rest, and wonder. Keep them safe in their activities and help them continue to grow in heart, mind, and spirit, even outside the classroom. We also pray for our teachers and school staff. Thank you for their dedication, their love, and their tireless work. May this break bring them peace, renewal, and the deep satisfaction of knowing they've made a difference. As we step into this season of summer, help us hold on to the good we've experienced, lessons learned, friendships formed, and milestones reached. And always remind us that no matter where we go, you go with us. We look ahead with hope, trusting that you are already preparing the path for next year. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071. The time is 6:01 p.m. We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 6:17 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. First on the agenda is to consider action on items discussed in closed sessions. Consider and take possible action regarding the possible settlement pending litigation disputes regarding a special education matter. Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. I move that the board authorize the superintendent to finalize the resolution associated with special education matter as discussed in executive session and sign any resolution on behalf of the district.
Do I have a second? Dr. Taylor? All those in favor? The vote carries 7-0. Ms. Lasan?
Yes, I'm going to read our mission and vision statement for the evening. Our mission statement is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders. And our vision is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Thank you very much. Public comments are next on the agenda, and we have no public speakers. Next up is discussion items. Superintendent report. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, first up is recognize someone, so I'll turn it over to you for that.
Yes, we are here to recognize someone very special tonight, and I also want to recognize some people that we have here with us, some former trustees who definitely spent some time here at the dais. We have Ms. Tricia Sheffield, Ms. Kronda Timish, Ms. Angie Cox, and Ms. Christy Hassett here. Would you ladies like to come up to the mic and say a few words?
We're here to roast Miss Riggle tonight. Come on. I actually found out that Miss Riggle was retiring from Miss Prosnick, Miss Sells, and Miss Lasan, and so I called and asked, hey, is there going to be some kind of retirement party or anything like that? And quickly it was no, she doesn't want one, she doesn't want anything. Just want the roast. Anyway, so you will get it from your fellow board members, but we each wanted to just say how much we appreciate you and love you. I don't think I could have served my term on my board without your help. I remember the times when trying to work and do all that, and you would literally meet me outside to, I've got your robe, I've got your thing for graduation, just pull up, text me, I'll meet you out front. And you did that, and with a loving heart and never frustration. And I can't imagine, managing board and all that, our different personalities, but you did it, and you always did it with a smile. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and I wish you so much fun and go on vacation and forget this place, Just enjoy life, and you deserve it. You truly deserve it. So thank you so much.
Jamie, I was elected a school board trustee in 2015, and you were coming in with Dr. Rogers. And as a brand new trustee, there's so many things to learn. And I have to say, you were so incredibly kind and generous with your time. And all those dumb questions, I never saw your eyes roll. You never exasperated. I can't tell you how much that meant to me, that just your love and your kindness to me as a brand new trustee, and just for our entire board. No matter how many balls were in the air, it didn't matter how many balls we dropped. You always picked them up and you kept them in the air for us. And I just can't imagine anybody better than you to have served so faithfully for this district. And we're blessed to have had you. Thank you. Love you. Wish you all the best with that grandbaby.
So when you step away from board service, there are a lot of things that you don't miss. You don't miss late night meetings. You don't miss politics. You don't miss drama. But you do miss the people. And you are one of those people that made such a difference in our district. And as they've said, you were kind of the calm in the storm often, right? And you always had a smile on your face. And you could always, it didn't matter what was happening, you were just like, okay, we're going to do this. And you had a way of bringing such peace to what sometimes was just chaos. And I'm so grateful that I was able to serve with you and be a part of, like, that we served together, and just to get to know you and learn about you and your family, and it's just a blessing. And so I am just so thankful that we were able to be here tonight, that I was able to be here tonight, just to wish you well. And I hope just nothing but great things for you and your future. And you have made a mark in the LISD, and we are all the beneficiaries of your just wonder and grace. So thank you.
Really quick, you are the heartbeat of LISD. I know they will miss you, I miss you, and I love you, and that's all I have to say.
Ms. Lasan, we'll have a little recognized someones for you.
Now that I think about it, this was really a good way to keep us from not being too terribly long-winded on talking about you. So, because we were all limited to what was it, 500 characters or something like that. Yes. So anyway, so we each did a recognize someone for you. And so mine is, there are just not enough words to describe how amazing Jamie is. She thinks of every detail and does her work with a smile on her face. She is funny, caring, smart, and just darn good at her job. I will miss seeing you on a regular basis on our little catch-up sessions. You have watched my little boys grow into big boys and always cared how they were doing. You are a rare gem and will be sorely missed. I hope that your retirement is full of estate sale shopping, grandbabies, and a hole-in-one.
Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Jamie, I just did a little figuring down here. This isn't on my card. I'll get to that in a second. The importance of your role in the district is that we've had 5 superintendents since I've been around, but we've only had 4 secretaries for the superintendent. So you tell me who's important, right? I mean, it's a big deal, and I don't think people recognize that. And so I wanted to just recognize you on your retirement. I wanted to address a few things. You know, your role is multifaceted in the district. You're handling many things, big and small. And the concerns that you address are just critical. There's no two ways about it. I'm thankful for your professionalism, grateful for your customer service. You know, customer service to us is one thing, but when you got somebody yelling at you on the other end of the phone, you're unflappable. And just really appreciative for your attention to detail and taking care of everything in the superintendent's office. And so I wish you well. Thank you very much.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay. I wrote this in the third person, so I'm just going to read it instead of speaking it to you. Jamie has that perfect blend of people skills and organizational skills. She always asks about my daughter and what's going on in my life, even if I only mentioned it in passing. She meticulously manages calendar invites and board resources, following up with grace and care, even when I forget to respond. And she even takes the time to make sure I have 2 water bottles at the dais for meetings. Jamie, you are the absolute best.
Ms. Alcatel.
Miss Jamie, words cannot express the gratitude I feel for this incredible individual. She has poured her heart into LASD and my family, working tirelessly with grace, kindness, and unmatched dedication. Her knowledge and leadership are irreplaceable, and her impact will be felt for years to come. It has been an honor to work alongside her. Wishing her all the best in retirement. She will always have friends
and a lasting legacy in LASD.
Dr. Taylor.
I would like to express my deepest gratitude and appreciation for Jamie Riggle. Her outstanding service and unwavering commitment have truly been a cornerstone of my success and sanity as a board member. She has gone above and beyond in keeping me organized with schedules, managing requirements, and handling countless details that might have otherwise overwhelmed me. Her ability to anticipate my needs, stay on top of everything, and ensure I am where I need to be, doing what I need to do, is unmatched. I was limited to not enough characters, but I want you to know that you are cared for and loved, and you will be missed. You are the heart and soul of this district, and I hope you stay in touch.
Ms. Sells.
Well, it's an honor to take a moment to personally recognize you, Jamie. Your work has been a steady foundation behind so much of what we've been able to accomplish. I think back to the bonds we passed and the work that you put in. Everything doesn't happen without you. Your patience, your attention to detail, and your genuine care have made a lasting difference, one that will be felt long after you retire. On a personal level, I'm grateful for your kindness and the way that you have approached every responsibility. You've been our team's glue, but more than anything, I'm blessed to call you friend. I'm going to miss you.
Every team needs a manager to ensure that everyone has what they need, along with their accommodations. Jamie, you're super important to our 8-person crew. In fact, I would say you're the 9th member of the team. You navigate the delicate balance between the board and administration with poise. Your resume should include how you have wrangled 12 highly needy trustees for the past 9 years. These skills will come in handy as you take on the best grandma in the world role. You have set the standard. You are simply the best. Thank you so much for your service. Now don't move. We have more. Yes. So yeah, these are. So not only do you get to keep our wonderful 500 characters, but we have a few other things for you. All right. So, because I want people to hear this. So, we have a lovely little plaque for your 15 years of service. In Lewisville ISD, Jamie Riggle, 9 years, our 9th team member, with sincere gratitude.
And we are happy to go ahead and give you your 15-year pin from LISD.
And then also these beautiful flowers for you, as you've ordered many a bouquet for different people in the district, and so these ones, but these are for you. And I think we need to do a picture with everybody's here. We may not have a official photographer here, but we have the Wrap on the Road camera, right? Okay, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Riggle. We really appreciate you. And now I will turn it back to Dr. Rapp for the 89th legislative session update.
Yeah, I kind of hate to follow that with the legislative update, but nonetheless, I need to do that. So let me go ahead. I have just a few bills tonight that I want to highlight for you all. The first one is Senate Bill 569. This is specifically relating to the provision of virtual education in public schools. It does authorize public school districts and open enrollment charter schools to deliver instruction through hybrid and virtual courses and operate full-time virtual and full-time hybrid campuses. It does require the Commissioner of Education to adopt rules as necessary to administer these bills' provisions. So this bill is headed to the governor's desk. This has passed. We absolutely believe that this bill holds some promise for us to do some virtual learning for people, but we're hesitant to get too far out ahead of the commissioner's rules. So, I'd hate to create something only to find that the commissioner's rules possibly cause us to have to undo the way we created. So we're going to meet as a team to talk about what do we know from the bill that we feel like, okay, this seems clear, we could go ahead and take this action, or what's something that we need to wait on, and then we'll report back to you all. But that one has passed, and I do plan on bringing some recommendations at some point around what this could do for our kids in our school district. House Bill 4 and Senate Bill 1962. This is specific to public school accountability and actions related to proceedings that challenging the operations of the public school system. Just a reminder, Senate Bill 1962 did pass the full Senate on April 16th. House Bill 4 had a significant committee substitute, and that passed out of committee on April 30th, and we believe it will be headed to the full House sometime soon. House Bill 4 took a definite departure from Senate Bill 1962. There's no longer a conservative assigned to districts if you choose to make a challenge against the commissioner or TEA. It outlines what a challenge must be based on, and that an expedited timeline must be utilized by the courts to hear that challenge. It does some drastic changes with changing the STAR from the STAR test to a nationally norm reference test, and ultimately it tries to streamline assessments to meet the minimum federal testing requirements. So that would be eliminating standalone writing exams. Ultimately, many more changes would be coming because the Senate and the House are now quite different on these two approaches, so we'll keep you apprised of that. Then House Bill 19 is specifically relating to the issuance and repayment of debt. I know you all have been studying this closely and communicating with your officials from our district that represent us. Scott did the math on this. You can see on the slide there. So in fiscal year 25, if you took 20% of our collections, that means that we would be allowed, if this law passed, to be able to make a debt payment of $125 million. But our current debt payment at that time is estimated to be $173 million, right, for this fiscal year. So that means we wouldn't be able to pay $47 million worth of our outstanding debt. So you can feel free to use the math on that slide to help advocate against this bill or for changes to this bill. If they would even just change it from 20 to 50%, that would be a significant step in a positive direction. And this was left pending in committee on April 21st. And so the big question is, what about funding? Well, so we've got about 30 days left in the session, and there are still polar opposites between House Bill 2, which is the House's approach to funding, and Senate Bill 26, which is the Senate's approach to funding. House Bill 2 addresses the basic allotment, special education, other funding formulas. Senate Bill 26 allocates all of the money into pretty much teacher pay raises. So it is really critical, and you're going to see us make some social media posts over the course of the next several days. We've got our video coming out about why you can't refer to averages. We've got importance of social media posts about the basic allotment. Time is ticking, and we need the basic allotment to be addressed, so we really need our community, especially to reach out to our senators as the House bill does address the basic allotment. And then the last one for tonight is school safety. Senate Bill 260 is now in conference committee, so they're just simply working out differences between the Senate and the House on whether it's going to be from $10 to $28 per student, $15,000 to $30,000 per campus, or increasing to $14 from $10 per student and $37,000 per campus. So we'll keep you posted on if anything changes with that. Oh, I forgot. Nope, I have the last one. So sorry. Last one. Personal communication devices. We met last week, myself and Ms. Gall and Brian Colbeck and Mr. Skelton, and I know Jonas Green has been a part of this work as well. House Bill 1481 passed the House on April 24th. Senate Bill 2365 passed the Senate on April 15th. Both bills want to limit personal communication devices, or what we would refer to as cell phones. It also includes smartwatches and some other devices, but basically the main difference is, are they going to pass a law that limits it during the school day or simply during instructional time? And they'll have to work out these differences, but both of these bills have passed respectively. And so we're keeping a close eye on that and how that would impact the upcoming school year. And that's all I've got for the 89th legislative update.
Any comments or questions? I do have a question, and you may not know this. For House Bill 4 or Senate Bill 1962, was there a fiscal note to pay for the norm test?
You know, that's a good question. We can go back and take a look. It was really hard to even, the committee substitute wasn't posted prior to it being heard, so I'm not for sure a fiscal note's been updated for the committee substitute, but we can take a look at that.
Just curious if they were going to fund that. Next up, the Lewisville Education Foundation Annual Memorandum of Understanding. Moo.
All right, so I'm going to ask Bill Lee to come on up, and we'll get his presentation up on the screen as well. So it's time for us to revisit. We want to do a better job than maybe what's happened in the past. I appreciate Bill being here, but our commitment to you all is to bring that MOU forward for annually for revisiting and any questions. Remember, you just recently approved an addendum to the MOU that was passed last year. So we've now worked that addendum into the MOU. So Bill will present. I think I have one slide of the presentation.
Is that the one I push? That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you to the board. I guess Jamie, did Jamie leave? For the record, I just wanted to tell her what an asset and a help she was for me, too. When I first started, I was just a few offices down up in the superintendent's suite. I felt like a big shot up there, you know, right there behind all you guys. But she was an incredible help, and all the way through my transition and the different positions. And gosh, she will be missed. And Dr. Taylor, I've been talking to her for the past, I don't know how many weeks, and saying, can I call you Dr. Taylor yet? Can I? Now we can. But I always do the first name under Dr. Sheila. Is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. So, well, I guess to start with, I'll say that, to be honest, I didn't even find out till just really a few weeks ago that the MOU had to be renewed every year. I thought that since it took so long, you know, there was so many to get the first one done since I've been here. I said, oh, well, I got 2 or 3 years to wait. No, Dr. Rapp said, no, Bill, that's just in a few weeks. So here we go, and I know we have, actually, there's a couple of things to discuss here. Do we have the actual copy, or did they get the copy of the whole MOU? But it's not on here, right? Okay. So first off, if you looked at that, there's absolutely no change, really, from the first one that was renewed in 2024. That one, if you remember, included the pass-through percentages that were agreed upon, the 10% for the first 5,000s on the pass-through, and then 5% beyond that. And then there was the big addendum that came through in December. So we can go to that first, I guess, if we do that. First of all, nothing new here, but the purpose of the MOU is to formalize the relationships between LAF and LISD. It was desired to memorialize, ratify, and approve current and past activities and mutual acknowledge for the future, respective obligations and rights of the parties. So this is the part that you guys approved, which really, and I really appreciate the approval on that. I know it was fairly complex. This was the Best Schools in Texas campaign, along with the revenue sharing that had been started with me in the marketing position prior to August 19th of 24. And so these are all the things that we brought down. And so this addendum now, when you look at the final MOU, per our legal department, Stephen Dubner, he showed me where to put those in, so they're towards the end of the MOU agreement. And just to give you an idea, this is the first fruits of that, which we're really proud of, as I've talked about many times before, is our big barter in-kind campaign that we have going with Grandscape and NFM on the east side. So this is where we actually share four-week flights of digital advertising. We're sharing them between LISD and LAF. LISD is getting ready May the 8th, I believe it starts, on their kindergarten recruiting campaign. So that will be everywhere. Whenever you go out to Grandscape, you can just see some examples here. It's on the two big digital billboards at Spring Valley and Spring Creek Parkway, I believe it is. But the big marquee, all of the things on the internal side. And as you can see, we've already alternated two different cycles. LAF had one, LISD is getting the next one. And then we're figuring out one of them will be right about when school starts, and then somebody will take it at the end of the year. So it's a great program, and that's how we're doing it. We're continuing to manage that process. The other one was the bus ads, and that is something that I know that we're reviewing everything now with the new administration coming in on the bus systems, on how that's all working. We have about 20 buses that have advertising wraps on them now that revenue is being generated from. Okay, so in addition to the MOU, I'm also here to show you just some basic slides just to kind of give you an update on some things. Our pass-through programs, if you're not familiar with what we do on these pass-through programs, these are the programs that we really manage the revenue for. Some examples of pass-through: Career Out, Incubator, Back to School Fair, HBCU Fair, all of these type things. So you can see the revenue and expenses all the way from 2018. I can tell you right now the 2022 big dips that you see in that, especially on the expense side, that was the Wonder Wagon. That's when all the bills came through for that really knocked that up. Not sure what happened to the revenue on 2022. We're looking at that now to see. And I remember these are per year. These are not cumulative. 23, 24, very, very close. A little bit down on the 24 side, which was pretty expected on the pass-throughs. Wrong way. The LAF awarding, you can see all the way from 2018. You can continue to see you could see on the pass-throughs, if you looked at it from 2018 to 24, definitely are seeing increases every year. So the pass-through programs, as those continue to go and come in for LAF, will be revenue-generating mechanisms for us. On the awarding side, you'll see for 2024 versus 2023 and 2022, relatively close on the total awarding versus the grants, on both scholarships and the grants. So you see that very close there. Go right. Okay, and just so everybody will understand on the way the revenue breaks down, and I know you've seen this before, 85% of all funding for LAF is basically what we call restricted. Those are for our scholarships, those are the endowments and things like that we can't really touch. 15% is our unrestricted dollars that we normally call our operational revenue. Well, on the right side, you can see all the revenue breakdown notes that are there. We currently have 222 permanent endowments. One of the things that we are looking at, in the past, the minimum endowment was always $10,000. Now we're looking at maybe $12,500 is what we're considering to get started on that. On the expense breakdown, you can see that in fact, I have some total numbers that did not get in the report. The total revenue for 2024 was $1.5 million. Total expenses was $1.1 million. And on the expense side, you can see that 60% of our expenses go out to the awards. 13% is our development, and that is our software, our platforms, all the mechanisms that make that happen. 27% is our operations. But of that 27%, approximately 21% of that is for our advisory fees for our investment. That's the Merrill Lynch dollars, which comes out to about 1.5% of the entire investment. The LEF strategic priorities remain the same. We build a reciprocal relationship between LEF and LISD. We find avenues for substantial operational funding, increase teacher and campus grant revenue to support in-district or campus needs. Here's some areas that we currently are working on. One thing, obviously, that we always do at LEF is to try to find new areas of funding. We can only do so much, obviously, with unrestricted dollars and going into our operational account. We're not allowed to pay salaries for LISD staff, but we can do campaigns. We can create campaigns that can generate big funds that can be handed to LISD so LISD can pay these things. But here's some that are currently in the works. Obviously, our events. Right now, LEF only has really 3 events a year, counting our scholarship event. We want to increase that. We are investigating levying a maintenance fee on our commonly called a service fee on our endowments. We're looking into several different possibilities of that, which would be anywhere from 1.5% to 3% for all of our endowment investments. It's a pretty good revenue generator. We would like to, I mentioned this to Dr. Rapp the other day, we would like to revive the plan. I'm not sure what happened to this and why this didn't get going before, of the LISD contractors in the future of any of the big contractors for any of the construction jobs, bond projects, that at least 1%, 1.5% could come back to LEF. I know that was always discussed in the past, but for some reason I don't think we ever got that through. But that could, I not only think it's fair, but I think it is a major potential fundraiser for all of us if we can make that happen. We're looking into the possibility of actually creating education endowments. We've never done that before, but actually creating endowments that 100% of the revenue from the endowments would come right back to LISD. And, of course, those are 100% non-restricted funds. Our multiple campaigns, we're always looking for other different campaigns that we're looking at. Today we research, if you're familiar with the Mindbender program that Frisco Education Foundation does, we're very interested in doing something STEM-related along those same areas. It looks like it's about an $80,000 revenue generator for the year. Just for one camp. So we're looking into all kind of different ways that we can work things like that out. And one of the things I'm really proud of, we were able to generate and create our fundraising steering committee. This was something that some of you may know what we did when I was upstairs in marketing. It was very, very successful to bring in these outside people, all walks of life, from the marketing side to help us and create the new campaigns and do lots of different things. But on the fundraising side, they're really going to come in and help us. The goal of this is to really build our corporate leadership dollars. We have the Corporate Leadership Society that has different levels of membership from 5,000 to 20,000. We're up in those levels to 50,000 now. We're really going after the major accounts starting at $50,000 for the corporate leadership group. And that's going to be aided. We're going to be aided by the members of our steering committee to help us mainly make contacts and open doors that we've never had open for us before. This is a slide that Dr. Rapp had in. Now I took it out. She put it back in.
I did.
Which I understand why. And this is just some ideas that were coming through on other ways that LAF can get involved. And one of the things I'd like to say right now is we are in current, not negotiations, but reviews with our board, talking about all kind of different ways that we can continue to help LISD. As you know, as I've said before, it's hard to help anybody unless we're healthy. LAF has to be healthy. And if you saw those charts, you'll see that we have very few opportunities for operational revenue based on the current situation. We have to have more events. We have to build more ways to generate revenue, unrestricted revenue for LAF. And if we look at the corporate leadership side, that's where a lot of these new plans can go. That's where the direct cash can go. We met with our financial advisors the other day, actually looking at investment ways that we want to move forward when these coffers really start to get full, so that we can generate interest on these dollars. So we really feel confident that that's going to happen. But
I appreciate Bill let me come in December and present to the LEF board, and this was one of the slides that I presented to them. I did add the last two bullets since that December meeting, board. And interestingly enough, you're going to hear from Tasha Moore here in just a few minutes about Communities in Schools North Texas, which we value that program immensely. But even when you think about the cost associated with having an elementary math and literacy reading assessment, it kind of came to me along the way, like that would be an interesting idea for someone to fundraise for. So these were ideas that I put out there to them that I see other education foundations across the state helping districts pay for things like this, because times are so difficult and, of course, so challenging, and we're trying to put every dollar we can gather towards raises for staff. So.
Yeah, and it's been very helpful because we actually have spent quite a bit of time working with a lot of the other foundations, mainly Frisco, Prosper, McKinney, Allen, very close to the size, not only the districts but also the foundations, and looking at what they're doing. They've learned, taken some of our things, and we're looking at taking some of their things. But we're at the very beginning of that. I think when you look at my tenure here so far, with what I was tasked with for the first several months, we went through quite a bit. We've completely converted our bookkeeping systems to an outside firm. We had a very challenging audit that we had to go through. We had some financial issues that we had to go through. So I can honestly say that, in my opinion, we're getting to a point that is going to be where my skill sets really lie, and where much more of my wheelhouse. And so I'm looking forward to this next chapter of where we go with fundraising and the people that we're bringing in to work with us on this together. There's only a certain amount of money that's out there, so we're having to try to look away from all of the folks that everybody keeps hitting the same people. We want to get beyond that and get out of the box and get to the bigger players, and that's why we're pulling in the help from our steering committee that will help us with that. So, in closing, I just want everybody to know that we, as LAF, obviously, we're going to continue to do everything we can to help LISD. I mean, we have to help ourselves. Our mission and our current mission is obviously mainly lays in the path of providing scholarships and teacher grants. But I've said from the very beginning that I would like to grow LAF vertically and actually have more projects to be able to offer. And so that's what we're doing. And that's with the help of the corporate leadership and some of the other things that I think it's going to be there for us. So thank you, everybody, so much for your cooperation up to this point.
Are there any comments
any
or
questions?
Ms. Lasan?
I just had one thought. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for being here tonight, and for it's good to see you in front of the board on this side of the aisle.
Thank you.
This a different role for you. I thought that was interesting about the 1% for major projects, and I thought, oh, they might kind of balk at that a little bit. But then I thought, well, would that be a tax write-off for them, possibly?
I think it is.
Mr. Rare, feel free to jump in there.
I always thought that was. I mean, as a 501c3, that's a donation.
Yeah,
it's
as
just
a 501c3, it would be.
That would seem to be more palatable, I would think, for a large company like that. So that
and we're certainly not thinking about the small little electrical jobs or anything like that. I was always thinking about the big contractor jobs, the multi-million-dollar contract jobs that I wouldn't think their margins would be so tight that 1 to 1.5% would make or break a deal between them and the district, So I know it's been done with a lot of other districts, I know, and I know there was a lot of talk about that years ago here. We talked about it up in comms too, but I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, we would just have to do some homework on it. I appreciate Bill bringing some ideas forward, but we haven't had time to, by any means, investigate what that might look or sound like.
First of all, I love the glow of the grandscape. When I leave the board,
East side advertising.
It glows me on 121 as I head home. How many current LAF board members do you currently have?
We're set for 22. I think we have 20. We have just pitched a new opportunity for Allison Stamey, who I think would be a great board member for us, and we hope she accepts. I think she'd be number 21.
And do they represent the entire district geographically?
I think we've come close to that. We've added, of course, David Pearson is one of our newest board members who is east of 35. I think we're really close. And that's a really good question that I would like to look into also. One thing we're not equal on their different backgrounds. We got a lot of bankers, we got a lot of financial people, which is fine. But we, and since I've been there, we've only had really one new member come on, and I think she's from Flower Mound, I believe. But I think we're pretty close, I think. But I'll check it. I'll let you know on that, because that's a good. I know where you're going with that, and I'll find out for sure for you on that one.
I'm prejudiced. I say it out loud.
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate the ideas in trying to do something new with the foundation and looking at other avenues to better support the district. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. And I'll have some more reports as I meet with my board, since a lot of this has just come up over the last couple of weeks. And so we'll be able, if Dr. Rapp will allow me to come back and give you some updates on that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Student Services, Mr. Kaj.
President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp. We're going to start out with community and schools. Yeah. Come on. We'll start out with community and schools, and Tasha Moore will take us through the annual update. And many of you were at the end of the year banquet, which was a wonderful celebration, and kind of the end of the community and school year. So she's going to take us through from the start of the school year to then.
Person. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you for letting me come and just share a little bit about the updates. I have started off with just a reminder of what our mission is. It's to surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. So our ultimate goal is that our students, in whatever communities that we're serving in and partnering in, that they are successful, that there is not a barrier that prevents them from graduating and from pursuing their goals in life moving forward. And so that is our mission. We accomplish that mission through our evidence-based model of integrated student support. This model looks at not only what are the campus's goals and needs for all students, but also what are those high need areas, those students who are already considered at risk of dropping out of school. How do we evaluate those needs in partnership with our school administration, our teachers, our parents, and also our students and what their goals are, creating a service plan, providing those services and continually monitoring them throughout the school year, so that when we reach the end of the school year, we're able to say whether or not a student improved in their academics, their attendance, and their behavior. And that is our ultimate goal, because when our students succeed in the classroom, we know that they will ultimately succeed year after year until they graduate and then moving forward in life. And so this is our model. When I look back at last year's outcome, so when we start a school year, we start in August, and we're providing those services all school year. We close out 2 weeks after the school year ends. That way we're able to look at final grades, attendance, behavior, benchmark scores, testing scores. And so these are the outcomes from last school year. Currently in Lewisville ISD, we were in 22 campuses last year. Across those campuses, there was over 107,000 services provided to students. That means that any student on that campus had access to food, school supplies, hygiene items, clothing items, coats through our nutrition hubs. No questions asked. You came to school, you needed this, it was here for you. Any of our students and families can also receive access to connection and resource brokering to our community partners, whether that is assistance with job skills, assistance with resume writing, or just access to food pantries and mental health services in the community. When we talk about our case management students, those are our students who we receive parent consent to provide services to. And that process looks like a teacher or a school counselor or a student themselves would refer and walk through the CIS office and say, hey, I need some help or I have a question. And the site coordinator would talk them through, well, great, here's who I am, here's what I'm here for, and I'm going to give a phone call home, I'm going to send an email home. And we're asking the parents or guardians, how else can we support you? What is it that you need? And so they provide their consent. We're serving that student all year. Those students are also the students who are considered at risk. So when you think of the TEA criteria, those are those students. So we served over 2,000 students last year through case management services. They received over 56,000 hours of service. And so our goal is that every student receives an average of 17 hours. Across all of our programs last year, we averaged anywhere from 27 to 31 hours of service per student. So that's on top of what they're already receiving in the classroom. The blue numbers underneath are part of our after-school program. So last year was our first year with our 21st Century After-School Grant. We have 4 campuses in Lewisville ISD that partner with us on that grant. 261 students received after-school services, and I'll talk a little bit more. There's a slide later about what those services include. But 2 of the key components of that are that students receive high-impact tutoring as defined by TEA, and so it was 126 students last year. And then 171 students and parents received additional engagement activities, whether it was education and connection back to their school and their PTAs and their different events that were happening. Those are those families. And then across all of our campuses, we have a volunteer and mentoring program, whether it is a one-to-one mentor or a lunch with a leader mentor or a reading buddy. We had 331 volunteers and mentors who provided over 4,000 hours of additional support and services. And I know here is where I would say thank you, because I know there are a lot of people in this room who made up that 331, and it means the world to our students and to our staff. So thank you for that. When we talk about the types of services, this is how we break them down. The highest consistently needed services for the last few years have been around mental and behavioral health services with over 16,000 services provided. Next to that runs our case management, which is a lot of the coordination and the check-in and the phone calls and the home visits and the teacher, how is this working and what else can we be partnering on with the counselors and all of that coordination. That was the 15,000 services. And then third under that is the health and human services, and that's the resource brokering, the do you have medical care, how can I help get you free glasses, what else is it that you might need. It's also where the food resources, school supplies, and backpack clothing comes into play. So that's a breakdown of the services from last year. And then these are the outcomes. So we look at how many of our students stayed in school. 99% of our students stayed in school. 98% of our students promoted to the next grade level. 93% of our seniors graduated. And 92% of our students improved in their area of targeted needs. So they improved in academics, attendance, or behavior. This is the list of schools that we are currently serving in this year. We're in both the Colony High School feeder pattern and the Lewisville High School feeder pattern. And those orange campuses are the campuses where we have our after-school programs at. You'll notice I said 4 earlier as part of our grant, and that is because Mill Street and Central Elementary are actually being served together at Mill Street. When we rewrote the grant for the new cycle, Central Elementary was actually doing really well on the rubric of need, but we knew that there was still a huge gap for those families who needed safe after-school care, and because the schools were close, we actually built a bridge program where students from Central can actually come over to Mill for after-school programming. And this is what our after-school programming looks like. It's 3 hours of after-school care, Monday through Friday during the school year. In the summer, it's 5 weeks, Monday through Thursday for 6 hours. Students are receiving a snack and a hot meal in partnership with Aramark here in Lewisville ISD. They receive homework help, intentional high-impact tutoring, academic support, enrichment support, and parent and family engagement. And then overall, varying campus to campus, we can enroll anywhere from about 75 to 100 students per campus. And then students get free transportation home if needed for their families. And what the after-school program allows is for the families who are having to work multiple jobs, or they're having to find work that's a little bit farther away, by the time their students get home, their homework is done, they are fed, and the families are just able to be together and enjoy time before it is bedtime. This year to date, and these would have been run in early March, so they are a little bit out to date at this point, but so far we've served 2,234 students over 36 hours of case management service. 303 students are participating in after school. And what I do know for this summer program, we've been working with our principals to target new students to participate in the summer after school program, really trying to hone in on that academic and summer learning loss and bridge the gap there from school year over summer. We have 385 mentors. 93 students have received intensive mental or behavioral health support with parent consent. And so that means they're receiving 6 to 9 free sessions provided by a licensed mental health counselor for support. And then 218 students have received high-impact tutoring thus far. And then just a highlight from one of our campuses at Peters Colony Elementary. They actually are operating 2 Lunch with a Leader groups, and they call themselves the Rise Up Girls and the Guys Who Rise. And that's where community leaders and volunteers come in. They talk about their careers. They talk about the skill sets and the character traits. And kids have an opportunity to engage and learn from those community leaders. And so it builds their confidence. It teaches them how to respond to conflict as well as peer pressure. And that's all that I have.
Any comments or questions? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. The 23-24 outcomes look phenomenal. Is that just for LISD, or is that more broad than that?
That is just LISD.
I'm curious, I would imagine that if we compared that to non-communities and school students, that there'd be quite a gap there. I wonder what kind of story that would tell as well.
So that's an interesting question. Our national office has been partnering with Harvard on a business study, and it is still in the peer review process. But what they're finding is that campuses that just have a CIS presence, those students are actually, over their lifetime, will earn anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 annually on their income just by being present, and then it's starting to reduce the achievement gap by about 20%. But it's still in peer review.
Well, thank you for that, because I think that wraparound services over and over and over again come up in the research, right, as ways to attack these issues. So it's really exciting to hear that and to see these numbers in LISD. Thank you.
Dr. Taylor. So used to saying Dr. Parker.
We'll get used to it at some point. I'm not even really used to it. I just wanted to concur with my colleague that the outcomes look phenomenal. I got a chance to participate this year at Mill Street, an amazing experience. And just given the outcomes, I would, anybody that's listening, if you haven't gotten involved and you can find some time to volunteer in this program, very worthwhile. Also think the after-school program is excellent. What I always saw research on is making sure that kids are fed. So I love the idea of making sure that they have a hot meal, that they've done their homework, and as you mentioned, they have that time when they do get home to have some family time, as well as that transportation is provided. So just wanted to make those comments.
Ms. Sells?
I just want to say thank you for the continued partnership. And this year was a little different for me because I was able to hand my first mentee her diploma last year. And I started with her in 4th grade at Central in the Lunch with the Leader program. And I thought it's not going to be the same. I don't know if I'm going to like it this year. Well, I was totally wrong. My new little mentee is just as remarkable as my former one. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity, because to see the pathway of a child who, I'll tell you, we struggled when she was at Delay. I didn't think, there were, I will tell you, there was one year that there were more times than not when I showed up and she either wasn't there or she was in ISS and I couldn't see her, than there was not that year. And to see her walk across the stage and to know that her life will be forever changed because she has a high school diploma, and she received a great education as a result. Did she always apply herself? No. But she always knew that she had her site coordinator and myself to answer to when maybe nobody at home really even knew the questions to ask. And so I just want to thank you for the continued partnership and for the impact that you've had, not just this year and on this report you're giving us, but so far into the past and looking forward to the future. So thank you. And Oscar rocks, that little kid from Central that got Student of the Year. Thank you for recognizing him. So thank you.
Ms. Sakatab?
I just want to share in the quick sentiments and thank you for everything that CIS&T has done with our students and our campuses and our schools. It is really appreciative to see this wraparound service and see the benefits of these students and these kids. You know, Oscar's story, for example, and there's many other Oscars, you know, throughout LASD who are benefiting and taking part and being loved and cared for. And the ACE program is phenomenal, that it allows our students, like you said, the opportunity to stick around after school, get fed, which is key to our students' success, getting their homework done. It's one less stressor that child or that family has to take on when they get home in the evening, and it sets them up for success. And I do appreciate everything that you guys have done to support our students. And I'm going to share in Dr. Taylor's sentiments. If you have not participated in communities and schools, you are not mentoring, you are not a leader, you are not doing some kind of a group, please reach out to any of us and we will get you connected. It is not a huge time commitment, But I'm telling you right now, it will fill your bucket more than you ever expected. So please try to get involved. Thank you.
Could you go back to the 2023-24 outcome slides, one with your cute little pie graph, please? So I just want to make a note that all those things cost money. It's not a wish that happens, right? Those things cost money because there's a trained professional behind every single one of those colors there. And it is not just that we love your program, but your program costs money, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And so we pay for that program through the funding that we get.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have the funding that we need, we are not going to be able to provide what has been shown to be good wraparound services. I'm going to highlight the academic support is one of the smaller things on there.
Yep.
And that's because we provide the academic support in LISD.
Yep.
And you all provide all those other wraparound services for, I'll be honest, a small percentage of our students who need it. But it costs money. And if we don't have the money for this very worthy program, for a program that has shown that it's worked. I looked at last year's presentation. Last year's presentation, 88% of seniors graduated. This year, you have 93.5. That's a leap. I don't think people understand what a jump that is. So while we are all lauding this program, and it is an amazing program, it is a program that costs money. But it's a program that has been proven to work, which is why we invest in it here in LISD. So I thank you for that very, very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you all. And can I just also say, we have an amazing team, so I will share your sentiments with our team. But thank you.
Next up is the transportation update for the 2025-26, including hazardous bus routes.
Thank you very much for having us and listening to this. Before we get started, I want to give thanks to Matt Garrett, Safety and Security Team, for helping evaluate this. The Student Services Department have met many times looking at different routes and things. But here we go with the hazardous routes. Some fast facts. Bus services provided to families that live 2 or more miles from their attended zone. Bus service is not provided for transfers, and we've kind of gone through this hit and miss throughout the course of the year. Bus services are provided to families that live within the 2 miles if there's hazardous routes. Last year, or this current year, 218 regular routes, 92 hazardous routes. For next year, we're looking out of those 92 to reduce it down to 91. And obviously, with some of the retirement campuses, some of the names have changed on the schools with the hazardous routes based on the location of the new home campus. But as always with hazardous routes, they can ebb and flow. A city decides to tear up sidewalks. Well, we're going to have to evaluate that, and we're going to have to provide service. Or subdivision build sidewalks, and that changes things too. So some fast facts, but I want to introduce Dana Chandler. You met her last week. Was it last week? And so she's going to take us through a few slides as she's building our transportation department.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Rapp. I just want to start by I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited to build this whole transportation system from the ground up and bring it back in from our current system. So to start, we've kind of started with our staffing already. We've had 6 meetings. I've met with drivers, and Jeffrey has been there with me throughout all the meetings, and we've brought everyone over that's currently working and employed with us. We have had, like I said, 6 meetings, and so far currently, as of this afternoon, I believe we had 87 of our drivers that had applied for positions with the district, and about 30 or so bus monitors. We are still working on staffing positions for our full-time staff, which would consist of, and there's a slide after this where I'll talk a little bit about that staffing, but dispatchers, field trip coordinators, student discipline coordinators, some of those folks. So those positions, I'm still working on building job descriptions with HR's help, and so we should be posting those in the next couple of days and start to see some of that turnaround as well. I'm working really close with procurement and Craig Martin and his department on purchasing new routing software that's going to upgrade our systems and give us a much better system than we have in place now. We're excited about those purchases, and so that we can move forward and just build better systems in general. Our parent app is a piece of those systems as well. Right now, currently, we are going to have to stay with I think Dr. Rapp talked the last time I was here about the short runway that we have. We are going to have to stay with some of those systems until we can transition to the new ones. I do have a little bit of news. I think we're going to be able to do that quicker than what we thought. So we may be at just a few months in, and we may be able to do it in pieces, general education first or special education first, and then as we grow, the systems, then we'll go ahead and move everyone over. Hopefully by Christmas, we'll have everybody moved on to those systems. But the parent app will be a piece of that as well. We're going to do some improvements to the parent app through some products that TransFinder will sell us it's called Market Connect. It will help us build a better system than what they're currently using. Even though we're still using the old technology, it will give us some better tools to deal with some of the issues that we're seeing currently with the system. These are some of the positions I was just talking about. Of course, the drivers is our biggest piece. We need to hire about 250 of those folks, and they're short-staffed right now. So we're going to have to do a lot of training and build our training department so that we can hire in additional people. I think they are about 30 drivers down currently. So that's a big piece for us. And then an assistant director, HR managers, maintenance folks, all of those people, that will help us build and run this program. So, but it's going good. It's a good start so far. 6 days in. So, and we've had a lot going on. It's definitely been busy. So.
So as we move into talking about the hazardous routes, really the presentation that you had loaded into board book, it kind of broken into two parts, school retirements and hazardous routes. So let's talk about the school retirements and what that looks like. When we talk about, there's two maps there you can compare from this year to next year that we have in place. So really, with this school, with Hebron Valley, it's 2281 Old Denton Road. That is one of the probably the most hazardous in that area. But as you can see, some of that, the areas highlighted in white, those students would receive that bus service because we wouldn't want children crossing 2181. Before I get too deep into this, I will say some changes that we're starting to see. We're starting to see maybe less crossing guards and more pedestrian activated crossing areas. We're seeing that. It's a cost measure. It's a high traffic area. So as we evaluate these routes, we're having to also consider that change in our world now from crossing guards to the push button activated things. So with Hebron Valley, 2181 Old Denton Road, obviously, those of you that live in that part of the district, you understand why that is. Then we start moving into the Highland Village, the north of 407 area. There's the two comparisons of the maps. And so when we talk in McCullough, we're looking at Highland Village Road. And a lot of these areas through here also lack sidewalks. And so, students walking would probably have to walk out into the street for this. Then the other part of the Highland Village area is to Heritage. Now you're talking 407. And then, of course, there's the railroad tracks that separate that area, which is quite challenging as well. We move into the colony schools, and a compact area with a lot of busy streets and avenues here. So really the first one, as you look at the colony, Farm to Market Road, 423 Main Street, Started out as a 2-lane farm-to-market road. Now it's 6-lane divided, and it is full throttle all the way from Little Elm all the way down to 121. So that area is highlighted in white. Will be provided bus service to Etheridge. As you kind of turned to the next one with Peters Colony, North Colony Boulevard. Day by day, year by year, these streets and these roads become more and more traveled as this area becomes more intense with businesses and things. And so North Colony Boulevard is a hazardous route that we have to consider. North Colony Boulevard even that stretches over into the Morningside area as well. Also with the Morningside area is the Memorial Road, Street, or Parkway, or whatever it's called. Once again, started as a very tiny thoroughfare, and it is picking up with traffic. And so that's important for us to review that area as well. And then, of course, Kamey Elementary is going to be split with 423 in that Memorial area as well. And then as we get into the Lewisville area, once again, a compact area with developed roads and developed subdivisions that we require us to take a deep dive into. Southwest Parkway is one, and talking with Matt Garrett, there's not a crossing guard located on that stretch. Though it's in close proximity to the school, it is a tremendous traveled road that is needs to be considered. And of course 121, Interstate 35. With Lewisville in particular, we have many times there's a lot of road construction, rebuilding, upgrading that is going on, and so we're closely monitoring those as throughout the year. Maybe having to add something because of a lengthy construction project that's taking place. DeGan Elementary, looking at Valley Parkway, and here recently with the addition of the new police department and the fire department there, that has really hindered some of the sidewalks there. But Valley Parkway is super busy. 1171 Main Street, that's undeniable right there. And so then they'll take us into our hazardous routes, and I'm not going to go through these. These are loaded into board book. You can review them. But once again, talking with Dana as she's come on board, she goes, Mr. Kosh, that's our job. That's our job to do, but we need to get the right software, and we need to have the right people in place to continually to review the hazardous routes, ones that we know will never change, but we need to look at them always over and over. And then with her staff being our people in our areas, being able to review those monthly, probably. So with that, that's all we have.
Are there any questions or comments? Dr. Bonner.
Dana and Jeff, I'm just glad that there's a commitment on that with new leadership coming in place and bringing it back into the district. We've done hazardous routes every year. I think you're obligated to legally. But nevertheless, it gives you a great opportunity, Dana, to do some more efficiency on those. So I really just appreciate that, and I'm thankful that we bring it every year.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, I have a couple. So if you're talking about doing them monthly, will you be bringing that to the board monthly, or are you looking at, I know you are required to bring it to us once a year. So
not monthly to the board, but as her department, as they're driving around, and really a lot of this information about the routes is gathered from bus drivers. And if there are employees and they feel connected to the school, to the neighborhoods, to the transportation department, they would say, hey, Ms. Chandler, we've got this situation here. We need to look at it. And so it just gives us an opportunity to a 360 view of all of our routes with that efficiency in mind.
And crossing guards, those are provided by the cities that we serve. They are not our employees. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's a partnership with our cities. They are not, we don't place them, the cities place them, right? in a partnership if we really think this perhaps needs a crossing guard.
That is correct, and that's where Matt Garrett and his department really have really developed that relationship. I mean, we can call Matt Garrett will call individuals there, we'll get an understanding. I mean, literally, you could ask Matt Garrett right now probably, hey, can you list out where the crossing guards are across the district? And he would probably list them out. But it is that partnership that we have, and we're very grateful for that partnership, but the world is changing with the placement of those.
You just really scared Matt Garrett right there. Just going to say, it's dialing for dollars. I'm so glad that you're here, Ms. Chandler. What is your time frame to get those people on board?
The staff, of course, probably in the next couple of weeks, we want to at least start to interview and get people started to move and, start to see some movement, especially for the managers. We need some of those folks on board to evaluate our buses. We need maintenance people to come in and look at those, make sure that, that Texas Central leaves our buses in good condition and that they're complying with their contract. So that's a big piece for me at this point. Of course, the other folks just to help me because these people are great. Our team is great and they've been helpful, so helpful. The directors of student services come and check on me probably 3 times a day and ask me if I need anything. And they've been
making sure she's still coming to work.
Yeah, they're scared. They text me at night and said, "You're going to come back tomorrow, right?" Yes, so they've been taking good care of me, but it is kind of a one-man show right now because they don't normally do transportation. So the quicker, the better. I know Melissa Cobb got my job descriptions this afternoon, so I know she's working on that piece. And so as soon as we can get some of those folks hired, the better it will be for us. Some of it will be dependent upon who on the team comes over from Texas Central, because I'm sure some of those folks will, want to move with us, and if they're, great qualified folks, we will want to keep them. And so, some of those people will need to continue to do service for the district, until July 31st with Texas Central. So that'll be a piece as well.
Sounds like you have a plan.
Yes.
Welcome on board.
Thank
you so much for the presentation.
Yes, absolutely.
Next up is Learning and Teaching Report. Ms. Gall.
Okay, good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rapp, members of the board. We have 3 items for you tonight from Learning and Teaching, and so we're going to start with SHAC and provide you an update on the work they've been doing this year.
Well, good evening. My name is Melanie Vincelette. I'm the Director of Health Services, and me and my partner here, Trish Kuckler, we normally report out to you in October with our annual School Health Advisory Report. However, because the work that the SHAC did this year had such depth and relevance, we wanted to bring forward something tonight as a discussion item. So just to refresh your memory, School Health Advisory Councils are required by the state of Texas in order to ensure that community values are reflected in our curriculum, in our health curriculum and education. Membership, when you see us again in October, we'll talk about that. The Texas Education Code requires us to assure that we have more members that are not district related, that we have a variety of interests and occupations, and that we represent the geographical area of our district. You are also required to appoint our members. So if you have anybody that you're interested in and would like to submit to us, please do so, because we are always looking for good membership. So in order to move forward to why we're here tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Trish.
All right, just to recap from October. We set out to research the use of technology and screen time, specifically how it affects pre-K through middle school students. And our goal was to develop thoughtful research-based recommendations for how screen time should be approached in our schools. Our work centers on Board Policy CQC guidelines for use of digital devices. And back in 2023, there was a legislative change that directed TEA to develop statewide guidelines for the integration of digital devices in public schools, resulting in the creation of that board policy. These guidelines aim to provide a consistent, developmentally appropriate framework that supports student learning, protects student well-being, and minimizes excessive or unnecessary screen time during the instructional day. The LISD board formally adopted the TEA guidelines as part of policy CQC, and SHAC used them as the foundation for drafting classroom implementation recommendations. So to ensure alignment and practicality, SHAC organized its work by grade level bands, pre-K through 1, first through second, third through fifth, and middle school, allowing for tailored guidelines that reflect students' developmental needs and learning environments. Our committee was made stronger through a diverse group of stakeholders. Our counseling and social work staff brought essential insights into student well-being and mental health. The Technology Advisory Council provided expertise on device usage, infrastructure, and digital best practices. And our curriculum and program administrators helped to ensure our recommendations align with instructional goals and classroom realities. Together, this well-rounded group ensured our policy work was both student-centered and practical for implementation. And of course, we had our 4 meetings that were jam-packed with learning, research, creation, and feedback. And then if we look at our 4 cornerstones, SHAC embodies community engagement. As Melanie went over, we have got a diverse group of members. And another thing that we provide for our community is that all of our meetings are recorded and online.
So we did use the TEA guidelines that were adopted in policy CQC, and the guidelines gave flexibility to districts to customize the recommendations on how they best fit the needs of the district. And so that's why we referred this over to the SHAC committee. We felt that they were best suited to talk about the mental health, the social emotional impact of digital devices in schools. And so just to clarify, this is about how we implement our 1-to-X devices and the devices that we provide students for instructional, and how we use those in the best way to promote learning, but then also to balance the health and safety that comes with those devices. And as Dr. Rapp mentioned in her legislative update, we are monitoring for expected changes when it comes to the personal devices that kids bring to them with schools. So the TEA document was broken into 7 different sections that said should be considered when you're making health and safety guidelines. The first one was consider the focused learning and what students should be doing when they're learning with a device. It included body placement. How should kids' bodies be placed and positioned as they're using devices? Frequency of breaks. How long should they go for sustained periods with using devices before they have a break from those devices? Having recommendations based on varying age ranges. So as Trish mentioned, we broke the group up into different age level groups. We had a pre-K kindergarten group. We had a 1st and 2nd grade group. We had a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade group, and we had a middle school group, so that the recommendations that were created could be varied by age ranges. They also said, TEA says you have to have processes in place for content filtering. That's why we brought our technology department in. They are the experts in providing content filtered access to students. So SHAC did not really need to address that piece because our technology department does a great job of providing filtered services for our students. And then best teaching practices, that's going to be, we'll present that to you as our next steps. We didn't ask the SHAC committee to come in and do our teacher training. We're going to do that after you see them. And so that's kind of the 7 pieces that had to be, and family partnerships. And so it's a partnership between what we do in school and what we do at home. Screen time is an aggregate. If we limit their screen time at school, but parents aren't doing that at home, then we don't have that good partnership. So making some recommendations on how to have those strong partnerships as families. So here's a summary of kind of what the SHAC committee worked on with the 4 areas of focused learning, body placement, frequency of breaks, and family partnerships. Those were the 4 areas we asked them to focus on out of those 7 things in the TEA guidelines. And of course, varying age ranges was addressed because they were split into different groups. And so a summary of what they said for focused learning is that when they're using devices, that those devices need to be for an educational purpose. It's not just fun or free time, and that when devices are not being used for learning, they're stored and put away. And then recesses and lunches being device-free times so that kids can have social interaction with each other outside of a digital device. And then teachers use Apple Classroom to monitor what their kids are doing when they are on devices. And so that was a common thread between all 4 of the different grade level documents. Body placement was the SHAC committee last year tackled movement and movement guidelines, and so this went hand in hand with the work that the SHAC committee did last year on movement, and so they recommended integrating some of those movement techniques in the school day to avoid static postures that can come when you sit for an extended period of time holding a device in a certain way. Promoting ergonomical body positionings, and actually we have Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills in our technology application teaks that address proper body placement, and so we reference those by grade level throughout those documents. Frequency of breaks, this was really where the different age level groups got to differentiate, because what's appropriate for amount of time for a kindergartner is different for an 8th grader, and so they specified in their documents the amount of time a kid could be on a device before they receive a break. So in pre-K kinder, they said no more than 10 to 15 minutes on a device, and then the kids need a break from the device. In 1st and 2nd grade, 15 to 20 minutes. 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 20 to 30 minutes. And middle school, 20 to 30 minutes. But they also said for middle school, because they have 45-minute class periods, that at least one time during the class period, there should be a dedicated screen break, and a screen break does not mean a learning break. So if you're working on your device in Canvas on a social studies project, at least one time in that class period, maybe you need to do a stand-up, hand-up, pair-up, find somebody in the room and share with them something you've been learning about on your Canvas assignment. So at least one intentional time during the class period in middle school that there is a learning activity that is not device-focused. So the last piece was family partnerships. And so we really know that a strong family partnership is important in this work. And so encouraging device-free meals at home, recommending device storage at least 1 hour before bedtime, supporting parents in the use of parental controls, not just on our district-provided devices, but on the personal devices that they provide their kids. And then encouraging movement and screen time breaks at home. And then so that's a summary, but this is what they actually look like, broken out by age level band. And then our next step with these would be to develop the timeline and resources for staff training, which would begin this summer, for implementation in the fall. And then publishing these as part of our administrative regulations to go hand in hand with policy CQC. Providing links to guidelines for parents on district websites with communication strategies, and those strategies would be in partnership with our campuses. Some of the feedback we've received is that parents pay more attention to what their teachers send them and what their campuses send them than what we send them here from the district level. And so partnering with our campuses to provide strategic communication from that teacher and campus level to parents about these. And then this does not replace the annual SHAC report that you'll receive in the fall, where you'll adopt membership and go over the priorities for the upcoming year. So with that, we will take any questions or comments that you have.
Other than sitting up straighter when you said body placement, does anyone have any questions? Ms. Sells.
I just want to say that this level of detail is remarkable. It's so much more than whether you have your device with you or not, and whether it's on or not, on or off. And I think that to some people, they believe that that's the level of what we monitor. Kudos to this little icon. Wow. That is remarkable. I think we need that on a little sticker. I think I need it as a reminder of my time to sit up straight, to take a break. I mean, that is just, once again, remarkable. But the level of details and the concentration on the different grade levels, because we do know that at different grade levels, there's different needs. And so thank you for coming. This was a pleasant surprise. I love it. Thank you. And so good work.
Ms. Alcatab?
I was also going to compliment you guys on the graphic and the detail that you guys put into it. It is really great. And as you were going through it, we're all kind of like adjusting ourselves and looking, thinking, okay, I need to take a mental break and so forth. And so I appreciate the time and efforts that you guys have put into that, because that is a lot more than what people perceive that we're monitoring. And so I appreciate you bringing it forth and making sure that you're putting it in the forefront. I did have a question. For example, how do we assess those SHAC recommendations? For example, the amount of time on the kids are on the device. You mentioned it. Here's what kindergarten's supposed to do, first grade. How are we assessing within the teachers, trying to make sure that they're kind of staying within the recommendations and following suit?
Yes, so we talked about that in the SHAC committee about how do you monitor that, but and some of them said, like, you should only have Tuesdays as the device days and Wednesdays are the non-device days, and that's really where our partnership with Learning and Teaching came into play, because you have to give the teachers flexibility to be successful with these. And so these guidelines that were written as a way to be as a framework for teachers to have some control over how they plan instruction. And so really that comes through the training piece of our teachers, making sure that they're aware of this so that they can include that in the intentional planning that they do through their planning cycles.
Great work. Thank you so much.
Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. To piggyback off of my colleague down the way, I do think we have to have some sort of mechanism for follow-up, because training in and of itself is not, we know that, right? We know with professional learning, training in and of itself doesn't make it happen. The other thing that I thought of in terms of staff training is there are some excellent teachers doing some amazing things with combining learning with technology use, combining manipulative use with technology devices, and really embodying these. And so I would love to see leveraging some of those individuals that already are making this happen to share how their peers can do it. And then this is a really snarky question, and the snark is not directed at you all. But are there exceptions for, say, state assessments where 3rd through 8th graders have to sit on a device for 3 hours to take a test?
No.
That's all. Thank you.
So I would add that what we put on the slide for you is a summary of these documents, and those documents, that is something the committee talked about, and what you talked about of not all screen time is created equally, and that's kind of how this conversation with SHAC started, was that just because you're on a device doing one task doesn't mean it's as minds on as doing a different task. And so that's actually delineated in these grade level documents about what we call productivity-based tasks, and that's an update we've provided to y'all in our technology and learning sessions about productivity-based tasks, and that's represented within these documents in the full sheet.
I would say this is a beautiful example of local control. And I think it is a way that we show that we partner with our community to reflect our community's values when it comes to how we handle devices in the classroom. I wish our legislature trusted us more to be more community-based learning. I think this is a beautiful example that education is a shared responsibility. You talked about how we can limit screen time at school, but if parents aren't doing it at home, what's the point? And I think that that's a really good example of that. But I think that the SHAC itself and this beautiful presentation and the icons and everything, I think it's a great example of what local control looks like. So thank you so much for modeling that way for others. Thank you so much for the presentation.
You're welcome, and we will transition to CT and Mr. Cooper. And as you all leave, I'd just like to say thank you for the collaboration. It took many, many different departments and the volunteers that serve on SHAC, which we're appreciative of. So Mr. Cooper is coming up so that we can talk about Career and Tech Ed, and Instructional Materials Adoption. I will kick us off by just reminding you of some things as that queues up. And okay, so as a reminder, we had Proclamation 2017 that did include CTE materials that were adopted as a part of that process. They lasted for 7 years, and those contracts have ended for those instructional materials at that time. We did have some items on the Proclamation 2024 that were CTE based, but these are separate to that. And as Jason and his team began looking through the renewals and opportunities for that, we just realized that the IMTA funding and the cost of these materials was not sustainable. So they are going out to conduct a formal instructional materials adoption process. They're in the process of doing that right now, and he's going to share that with you. But I just wanted to remind you that we are going to still follow that process, bring it back to you in June, and you can consider it for consent once we've identified the top vendors that we will be selecting. Also, just some changes since the 2017 is that there are additional courses that we need to consider. We want to look at some streamlining for our teachers, and we want to include the IBCs as an opportunity as best as we can and as is necessary for the courses we're talking about.
And as she mentioned, the IBC implementation, that last bullet, that did come into effect after Proc 2017. So when these resources were adopted, obviously we're in a lot different CTE world than we were back in 2017. So this is what we brought before you last year for Proc 2024. So these are the courses, a lot less courses than what we would be presenting to you this time. So I'll be chatting through each of those. But these are the three sources that we went through, and as well as some that we had no recommendation last spring. So as Ms. Gall mentioned, this is our timeline. So through April, we have gone all the way through, and we've had the feedback opportunities for all teachers that teach these courses, anybody that teaches inside that program of study. We've had the online community review window that was open the April 7th through 16th. The in-person community review was April 24th in conjunction with the LHS Incubator Night. If you came through the VIP door, you would not have possibly seen it. However, we were there. We did have one person come over and review that came specifically for that event. And then the review teams will analyze the feedback from the teachers, community members, and parents. So my awesome CT administrators are doing that right now and getting down to that and seeing those responses. So we are at the school board discussion item, and then as she mentioned in June, we will bring that before you with the recommendations, and then we will hopefully begin ordering materials if approved and funding is available, and then we will be right at it over the summer for professional learning for our teachers to get adjusted and acclimated on any of these new platforms and any changes. So our CTE priorities, so the instructional resource, content, clarity, and organization, the student supports and accessibility, teacher supports and accessibility, and then the career readiness piece, so making sure the future career preparation as well as the IBCs. So this is the same priority list that we went through last year when we went through Proc 2024. And then our teacher review committees. So we use the teacher review teams to maximize the amount of input that we receive. As I mentioned, any CT teacher that currently teaches or supports that course, so they may not necessarily teach that course, but they may teach the intro level before that course. We still think that they need to have their eyes in it and hands on it. So anybody that's inside that program of study, inside that career cluster, as well as teaching that course, had the opportunity to give that feedback, which I think was really beneficial for some of the terminology that we received. And CT administrators also worked alongside the instructors for support throughout the evaluation process. So then the committee recommendation process, they went through and evaluated and implemented the district resource and rubric criteria that we did last year. We had secured some hard copy of some materials, scored it using the rubric, reviewed community feedback, campus feedback, and then we'll finalize our recommendations once those are complete. So once again, instead of bringing the whole list of courses, because it would have taken a few slides to get all of them, we are going into 9 of the 14 career clusters. So you could see those listed out right there. We have all career clusters except energy, education and training, information technology, manufacturing, and transportation. So we've got a pretty healthy selection of career clusters that we're going through, and those will be our resources that we'll be looking through. So these are the publishers currently under consideration: Cengage, ICEV, CompuScholar, eDynamic Holdings, Goodhart Wilcox, and Pearson. Then, always fun to talk about the funding in CTE. So funding these resources, we will continue to explore funding these adopted resources through sources outside of IMTA. IMTA is what we used for a majority of our resources back in 2017. So we will be looking at Perkins or our CTE allotment and being able to make some room through our within our own budgets. So this will allow maximize the opportunity to maximize the IMTA funds for other opportunities and other content areas as well. So for the next steps, we will be comparing our recommendations to our teacher committees with the cost of the materials to determine the priorities of selections, and we'll be bringing forth final recommendations in June as information and consent items. With that, I will open it up to any questions.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple of questions for you. I tell people all the time that I really think our adoption process in this district is outstanding. We have an excellent adoption process. But curriculum's been and instructional materials have been, in the news, and there have been lots of questions around how people adopt curricular materials. So in that note, SBOE is going through their process of how they are determining what is accepted and rejected curriculum, and CTE is slated for 2026 to go through that process. So how are we kind of watching what's happening there? Are we using their draft rubric as a part of this process? Do we have anybody on the focus groups that are coming up in terms of CTE curriculum? So how are we engaging with SBOE as we look to adoption?
So we are staying on top of that as much as we can, as much as everything kind of keeps the plane is getting built as they're flying it. But in the same breath, everything that we're adopting, we're also making sure we're adopting them on, from our pricing standpoint, looking at it on 2-year contracts. That way, if we do have to pivot or something like that, last time, the great thing is that we were in a 7-year contract, so we didn't have to come back for another 7 years. The hard thing is, as in CTE, as you all know, it changes so fast. And we are under the evaluation and criteria for accountability that we know right now. And 2 years from now, it may be a completely different conversation. So absolutely, that's something that we are leaving room for flexibility to maneuver any way that we can. So, but hopefully 2026, we will be able to walk alongside that.
Just saying, their focus groups from April to June would be great if we had somebody sitting in there.
And anytime we have anything for any of the TEKS evaluations, curriculum adoption, anything, we shoot that out to our teachers. We have a lot that are highly involved. I'm on the TEA Leadership Committee, so we try to get our voice in as much as possible. They are very aware of who Lewisville ISD CTE is. I can promise you that, in a polite way as much as possible.
Well, I mean, they also know we're one of the best in the state,
that
as
is true.
Evidenced, of just a few months ago. Thank you.
That is true.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just say, if you sit on this board long enough, as Ms. Sells and I have, you can adopt them and watch them retire. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper. We're going to bring up Ms. Karen Spalding, our Executive Director of Elementary Curriculum and Programs. She and her team and many others have been very busy conducting an RFP on elementary assessment and intervention software. We were charged through the district improvement plan to begin exploring other opportunities, and they have been doing that over the last several months. So we're here to share with you just an overview of that process, and then we will offer another opportunity on the 12th, actually, for you to make a decision to support the final recommendations at that time. So just to make sure that you're aware that what we've just been talking about goes quite well along with this, but considering no increase to the basic allotment and the gaps in the funding, we've been providing this iStation for many, many years through the efforts of both local 199 funds and instructional materials and technology allotment. And of course, Dr. Fitzhugh has allowed us to have her expertise when it's come to breaking down the data from iStation, but they've been purchased by Amira. And so it was actually a really good opportunity because they are changing their product quite a bit, which allows us to consider other opportunities in order to compare what is out there and available as the cost considerably have increased over the last 10 to 12 years that we've been using the product. So I will let Ms. Spalding talk about the benefits of the assessment and intervention software and the considerations that the committee's been making. We did conduct this as an instructional materials process, similar to what Mr. Cooper was just sharing. We did the same thing with this assessment instrument.
Thanks. There's many benefits to having software available to our teachers that looks at reading and mathematics. We use the diagnostic assessments not only for setting our district and campus improvement plan goals, but also for reporting our House Bill 3, reporting to you guys. But far more importantly than our goal setting and our reporting is the benefit that this provides to our teachers. Anytime we have a screening instrument that can help us identify learning needs for our students, identify for those the gaps that are happening in instruction, and better provide information for how teachers respond to that, that's a win for education. Many of these programs, in addition to a diagnostic assessment, come with an instructional intervention system that has personalized pathways based on the diagnostic so that students have some independent practice in those identified skills, which gives our teachers some computer-based support for their the small group teaching interventions that they're already providing.
All right, so just a blast of the past, we've been implementing early reading assessments for a very, very long time. That included back in the day when we did TPRI, Tejas Lay, some one-on-one individual assessments that took a lot of time, shifted to some DRA kits, all pre-technology, and then have implemented the pre-K circle and the required text KIA for early childhood and kindergarten students. Of course, we moved into iStation, and at one point it was cost-free, provided by the district during our accelerated reading and math intervention requirements that the state had us implement at that time. That stopped around 2015. We took over those payments at the time, and as I've stated, it's continued to increase significantly. We are mandated to conduct an early reading indicator assessment for K2, and it does get reported through the assessment office in the PEIMS department, and that started in about 2012. The dyslexia screener began in 2017. It is required of all kinder and first grade students and teachers, and it is not always available in all the assessment instruments that are out there. It also helps us to complement the House Bill 3 goals, as Ms. Spalding mentioned. That started back in 2019. We've experienced barriers over the years, as you all have experienced yourselves, but because of the cost, we are here today. We also wanted to make sure that teachers did not have to go back to a one-on-one assessment. That is time-consuming. It often actually resulted in substitutes being requested by campuses, costing more money and time. And so we're trying to avoid those types of things, as well as avoiding the subjectivity of assessments and making sure we have a neutral objective instrument.
So as we defined the criteria that we were looking for in the products that we were exploring, we searched high and low and looked at a variety of options, from the text-ready bank of questions that's available through the Service Center to our current product as it's being transformed into into the Amira system, as well as other products we hadn't even been aware of existed. You can see the criteria here. I'll just highlight a couple of those. It was very important to our committee and to our district that the software, whatever we choose, be equitable in English and in Spanish, and that the Spanish be authentically developed, not just directly translated. That's something we're really watching out for in every product we consider. We also needed this product to serve as our dyslexia screener so that it serves double duty in that regard. And all of this analysis led us to considering which companies would meet our criteria in order to participate
in the formal RFP. I'm going to let Dr. Fitzhugh talk a little bit about norm and criterion referenced options for us, since she's our assessment queen.
So one of the things that we've experienced over time using these instruments is that when we've adopted norm-referenced assessments, when the entity decides that it's time to renorm their data, it sets us back in terms of our goal, because that's trying to reestablish that normal bell curve where 50% are above and 50% are below. And the way that we utilize this instrument and look for growth, a bell curve and a normal distribution isn't necessarily what we need. So we're trying to work within those parameters. So we watched a lot for, was it criterion reference? There's a specific standard you're trying to reach to, and that's what we hold our students accountable for. Or is it something that you're comparing to an all population and you're going to renorm it whenever scores start to skew and start to grow too much? So we paid a lot of attention to those different pieces.
So as Mr. Cooper described, we followed a very similar process to what we do for instructional materials adoptions. We launched an RFP in February, and we were pleased to have 7 companies respond to that RFP. 6 of those companies were invited to demonstrate their product for our committee. We had to eliminate 1 for lack of equity in English and Spanish. And the procurement team took over after those demonstrations took place for our committee. Procurement team, we're so grateful for their partnership as they started working on getting the best and final offers from the top 3 vendors that the committee, based on the committee's input. And now we're bringing this to you today, and we'll come back next week for an action item, so that if we receive consent and if there's funding available, we can start training teachers on this chosen software in June. We can't miss out on the summer months for training opportunities to have time to get to everyone that will need information in order to be able to implement this next year. Our district review committee included district and campus representatives from these categories of people. It was a wide variety of representatives, each bringing their unique perspective and expertise to the group. It was important that we had campus principals, content and program administrators, representatives from special ed, technology, data and assessment, and procurement, all on the team, so that we could consider every user and every perspective of this software program. How does it roster? Does it work within our systems? Does it meet the needs that are required for our adaptability for students? I mean, all the things, right? So I was very grateful to the 15 people who served on this committee, because they gave us such insight from their various roles. So our next steps, we're taking those top 3 considerations back to the committee and considering the cost of materials to determine the priorities and selections that we'll bring to you for consent next week. Again, our procurement team is actively negotiating our best pricing, which we know is so critical, and we'll bring forth final recommendations next week to you as an action item. If you have any questions or comments, we'd be happy to address them.
Dr. Taylor.
I just had a quick question. I think you may have answered it. You talked about the top 3 vendors. So your team will go through the top 3 and then bring a recommendation for the final vendor of your recommended choice?
That's correct. Next week we will come to you with that final recommendation for consent.
Okay, thank you.
So, not to disparage any of the 15 people on the committee, have we, in doing this, because the end user is students, right? I mean, we look at the data, but the end user is students. And I go back to when I came on the board, I did the iStation second grade test. I'd like to think that I could pass that at that time. But have we ever done it with a group of students to see how students interacted with the software?
That's a great question. Actually, we have aspects of the top 3 considering the top 3 software products we're considering in our schools as we speak in various ways. And so we've been able to put our eyes on real students in real time using those real products, which has given us some nice comparison from that perspective.
Well, I was going to say, I think Dr. Rapp also hears it from some of her student advisory for the current product we use, which obviously products you use over time, they have opinions to let you know about, and they have expressed that too.
I had opinions after I took it, so there's that. I look forward to reading the review, and we'll see what we come up with next week. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Next up, it's the finance report. Mr. Rare.
All right, good evening. Tonight we'll talk about the next bond sale, and I'll invite John Martin with Hilltop Securities to come up. And as John's coming forward, I wanted to give a little bit of background information for this bond sale. And so this would, to help us facilitate moving forward with projects that were voters approved back in November of 2023. We currently have about $510 million of bonds that have not been sold yet that were approved. And so the cash flow requirements for this second sale would be $300 million, with the remaining $210 million, which could be over the next few years. In addition to the bond sale, a portion of the Series 2016A bonds are eligible for refunding this year, and those are callable on August 15th. And so we could pool the refunding together with the bond sale. And so included in the board packet are the parameters for the refunding and new money sale, in addition to the selection of an underwriting team. And so John will walk you through just some different sales scenarios that the board will have for consideration.
And real quickly, John, before you go, in your folders board, we printed off the documents for you. We thought that might be easier if you wanted to reference those this evening. The presentation on the slide is actually for construction, so no presentation. John, I just wanted you to know they've got handouts. Okay.
On. There we go. Okay. Thanks, Scott. So we have a few options here to consider. We have $510 million remaining from, first of all, good evening, everyone. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Yeehaw. But we, just to jump right into it, the district has $510 million of remaining authorization from the 2023 voter authorization. So we've been walking along here looking at about $300 million of new money, and as Scott said, with the potential refunding, Michael updated numbers this afternoon, and we just squeak over that 2% threshold in our debt management policy to allow us to move forward and stay in compliance with our policy. So who knows what it will be by the time we get ready to price bonds. But we're going to leave it in the deal and continue along as if it works, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. So keep in mind, we also are continuing our program of defeasing bonds, and along the way that's also a part of the big picture of debt issuance for this school district, that there'll be bonds that will be defeased with some surplus sales tax collections. So we'll give that back to the taxpayer in the form of paying down debt here. So it's great practice to have. So one thing we can talk about is some options for selling bonds here coming up at the end of the month. So we've kind of shot for coming to you all next week with a parameter sale that sets forth. You all are familiar with certain thresholds to allow you all, you're basically delegating to Dr. Rapp and Scott to say, okay, so long as these parameters are met. It will involve the new money and the refunding piece. So both those things have to hit to move forward, or you will separate them apart. So with that, as we look towards pricing the end of this month, and all things considered, we've been looking at a $300 million and selling right now, maybe $300 million now and some next year, or some before the end of this fiscal year. So there's things to keep in mind that you all should consider, that we need to be able to get all these projects engaged and started, the construction of them, so not to bite off maybe more than you can chew, and be able to get that so you can pass that 36-month or 3-year spin down test before you have to, because what ends up happening there, it becomes more difficult when you're sitting on excess proceeds for more than 36 months. You have to restrict yields on those earnings and so forth, which right now interest rates are higher than what we've seen in the past. So that's not that big a deal, but it is a consideration that you have to be aware of. Some other things that we've thought of and talked about is there's a nasty bill out there, HB 19, that is very restrictive for public finance. If that comes into play, I would think that we would want to sell all of our remaining authorization. We're not going to know the answer to that until after May 28th, more than likely, if that were to become law and what the effective date may be. An option may be to take the $300 million and sell that kind of as planned on May 28th, see what happens with what comes out of Austin. If they leave us alone, we'll do the $210 million next year, kind of as planned. If not, then we'll accelerate it and sell maybe in August. Come right back with the remainder. I know that's a kind of a boom bond sales, but the problem is the crystal ball is real cloudy. We really don't know right now. So we're here to kind of wash this out with you all and kind of get your input as to where you think whatever you all want to do. We're here to serve. So whatever you all think is best. I've kind of given you the pros and cons of the three options here. And most importantly of all this is you all are in a great position where this is not going to raise your tax rate. So you have an opportunity to continue to lower that tax rate a little bit if you so choose. On the INS side, it's the only tax rate you have any control over, really. So the impact there is not really that significant, all things considered. Whether you do it all the authorization now or split them up in two, or you do some this year and do some next year, at the end of the day, it comes out fairly close, not too far off. The refunding there is we can manipulate the way that refunding is structured to hit some tax maintenance for you all, along with the ongoing defeasance program that we would hope to have. There's another nasty bill out there, as you all know, that would pretty much take away that option for us to be able to continue to defease bonds and pay off debt early. I don't understand why that's not a good deal, but.
Any questions, comments? Dr. Parker?
I'm trying to process this bill, this House
Me
Bill
too.
19. So, because would it require us to do something about existing debt? Is that why you're saying that we could go ahead and make those purchases? Because we could, so.
Yeah, so what the new rule would go into effect as the bill's written now, September 1. So moving forward after that, we might be constrained in our last tranche. So we've got $210 million. We might not be able to do all $210 million in 2026. It might take us a couple of years to get below that 20% that there is the way the bill is written now.
Which is why you're saying if the bill passes, then we could go ahead and make that, the rest of that sale in August to get ahead of it.
Correct.
Okay. I
That's
just
where I
wanted
was
to
going
wrap
with it.
my brain around
And
exactly
I'm sorry
what
if
the
I was not clear
decision
with that.
is.
Yeah.
Dr. Bonner?
Thank you, Ms. President. Yeah, John, we had talked in committee correspondence around the idea, the whole enchilada or chopping it up, and so I appreciate you addressing that tonight. With House Bill 19 being in place, we're already underwater as far as bond sales moving to next year. So in that cloudy crystal ball, how can the state restrict us from a contract that's already made to sell bonds? We're at 175, I think, somewhere in there, and we've got authorization in that bill for 20% of about 600 million, 120 million. So we're already 47, 48 underwater.
Right.
So I understand moving forward, but how can they restrict what has to happen contractually already?
And
That's my question.
That's a great question. And Michael and I have dozens of clients in your same boat right now, particularly those that are faster growing school districts that
Sure.
have done larger authorizations, and the plans were, and what they promised the voters was this was going to go off over a 5, 6, 7 year period.
Right.
And if that were to be implemented, it might be 10 or 15 years. Is the authorization still even good by then?
Right.
It's a huge problem.
So to our conversations, I don't know that it matters whether you do 300, 200, 500, whatever, as long as it's all done before September 1. Because we just don't know. I mean, I guess
if the bill passes.
If the bill passes,
In
yes,
its
sir.
current-
Yeah,
current
yeah,
form.
and it's
Something
in
is going to
committee.
pass out of that bill.
I'm sorry?
I got to believe, because it's a low number bill, 19, that it's going to, something's going to come out of it. Now, that might get wiped out, and there might be
something else.
Bill number, House Bill 4562, whatever, some crazy number that they come up with that could have something buried in it that we just got to really pay close attention to.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you, John.
Dr. Taylor.
I was going to ask where your crystal ball was, but you already talked about that. So my question is if, because again, we talked about it in committee and we felt like sell some now, wait till later. I understand that if the bill passes, that speeds up the time frame. What is the additional cost, and you may have covered this and I don't remember, of if you were to sell back to back, what's the cost to the district?
There's certainly additional costs.
Right.
If we're within just a few months, so the ratings would be very much discounted.
Okay.
You would have your financial advisor, your bond counsel, rating fees would be discounted because it's within what is it, 6 months? Is it what their ratings are good for? I think that's when from the time of engagement, you have 6 years to 6 months,
to sell it. Okay.
6 months. Yeah, we got all kinds of time.
Okay.
So yeah, 6 months there. So I'm guessing you'd probably be. I mean, you would certainly have issuance costs.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I can get back to you on that. I don't want to cuff a number here that's off base.
Okay. Thank you.
But there would be cost of issuance.
Additional costs.
You would have to
Great
pay cost of
ballpark
issuance.
that number.
There's no
Okay.
doubt you'd have your underwriter to pay
Right.
those fees as well, and that's about $5 a bond.
Okay.
So.
So I'm going to piggyback on some of that, which is, so when we received our PSF approval from TEA, was that for the 510 or was that for the 300?
That is a great question. We initially did 300, and we pulled it and went back for the full 510.
So we're approved for the PSF for the full 510.
Right. So we could go up to 510 if we just did 200, 300. If we didn't do the full 510, we're still good.
Up to doesn't mean we have to spend it.
It's a
just
not to-
up,
it's a not
up-
to exceed amount,
Not to
yes, to
exceed.
be clear. Mhm.
And then, so, you know me, I like to really push the financial laws of the world. If we did in an abundance of caution, right, and we went ahead with our original $300 million on the 28th of May, as is scheduled right now, what would preclude us right now from starting to set up the second sale and maybe not having it? Would there be any cost involved in doing that?
No, ma'am.
So we could go ahead right now and start saying that we were going to have another issuance. Are you following me down there? If we would have another issuance, I'm going to make up a date, June 23rd, that we could start doing that right now, but we don't have to pull that trigger. Are you following me?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's in our best interest, frankly, because we don't know what they're going to do with that bill.
Especially, as you know, John, if there's no cost involved, I'm all in. I mean, there's a cost involved in the issuance. I'm not saying there's not a cost involved there. I'm just saying if we said we're going to stick with this deal as written right here at the 300, but I want you to go ahead and we'll get we'll have to maybe have a discussion, maybe a committee meeting or whatever, but do another underwriter? Do you know, or we can have a committee meeting if we want to use the same ones, but get ready to go so that we can, if on June 2nd, when we have Sinai Day, we can pull the trigger or not pull the trigger. Does that make sense, Ms. Sells?
Does that have any potential to impact this sale?
Great question. So we would obviously need to disclose that to the rating agencies in our discussions. And they're in tune with what's going on because they're hearing so much from, we're not the only problem. So maybe not a good choice of words, but the to Ms. Prosnick's point on being ready to go, if you want to come bam within a month, what we're asking you to, what the parameters order that you will see is a not to exceed 510. We do 300 in May, and that remember that order is good for a year. So you can come back whenever you want, and it would be very easy to paper it back up. All the contents of the economic demographic stuff and the back of it would not change from what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and I want to say it still has to fall within our financial policy in order for this to work. If it doesn't fall within our financial parameters, no matter what we say, it's a no-go. So those parameters are still, of our policy, are still in place.
Understood.
Yeah. All right. Hi, we like making things complicated around here. I appreciate the work, John. Anything else from anybody? Thank you so much. I was waiting on Mr. Rare. You're good to go.
Okay. All right.
Randy's ready.
All right. Well, good evening, Madam President, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So here tonight to do our normal update for the 2023 and 2024 bond. Again, this is INS money. We talk about all the time. This is not M&O money. So just a couple of updates on our 2023 bond. The first is our guaranteed maximum price for the Marcus High School partial 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project. So this project, Glenn Partners was the architect, and Pogue is the construction manager at risk. This project was advertised and bid out to subcontractors by Pogue Construction. They've evaluated and scoped those bids and provided a guaranteed maximum price. And a recommendation for that GMP will be presented to the board next Monday night as a consent item. Our GMP is $53,101,087. That is within our overall project budget, which is great news. It includes the total value. Remember, we did an early package GMP, so this GMP covers, this is the total GMP number for the entire project. As mentioned last time when we did the early GMP, this project will take place 3 summers and 2 school years in between, so 25, 26, 27, and the school years in between those. Okay, so our next one here is, this is a architect selection for fire alarm upgrades at Lewisville, Morningside, and Peters Colony elementary schools. So I need to talk a little bit about why this project is now coming up. So as you remember, in the 2023 bond, we had an emergency responder radio and antenna system project. That project was providing full radio coverage for first responders in all of our campuses that needed the coverage that was per the testing that was done. The ERS project, if you remember, was partially funded by the 2022-2025 School Safety Standards Formula Grant, and there were additional funds included in the 2023 bond for that entire project. So part of the requirements for the ERS system is that they have to be tied into the fire alarm. That allows the fire alarm system to kind of monitor the status of the ERS system. 4 of our campuses had Harrington fire alarm panels. Harrington actually got bought out in 2015, and those products are no longer supported. So we tried Our vendors working on the ERS project actually reached out to multiple sources to try and get their hands on something that would allow this to work. Unfortunately, we were not able to come up with anything. So those 4 campuses are DeLay Middle School, which, if you remember, already has an assigned architect, already has an assigned 2023 bond project for that one. However, these other 3 elementaries did not. They were not in the 2023 bond because the facilities assessment had a score where they weren't required for replacement yet. It is important to note that those systems are fully operational, so there's no issues with the schools don't have an operating fire alarm system. They do. We just can't add to it at this point. And so in order to complete the requirements of the ERS system, these fire alarms must now be replaced. So the municipalities, it's 2 municipalities for these 4 locations. They've been working really well with us, and they said, hey, we will allow you to close out that ERS project now, knowing that we are going to come in and replace the fire alarm system in the very near future. As you know, fire alarm systems require the use of an architect or engineer for design. Huckabee has worked on numerous fire alarms through our 20-year life cycle maintenance repair projects, dating all the way back through the 2017 bond. They were also the architect on the ERS project, so they know the specific requirements needed to get these 4, or the other 3 campuses completed, excuse me. So a recommendation to approve this project, as well as Huckabee as the architect, will be presented to the board next Monday night as a consent item. We are estimating right now the total project budget needed is about $1.2 million. Funding would come from the remaining ERS project budget, which I mentioned before. We have remaining 2023 bond funds specifically for that project. And I listed the project code there. So next steps for 2023 bond, those 2 items I just discussed will come back for a consent item. And then in June, we are looking to bring some more GMPs. We've got the Colony High School partial 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair. If you remember, we did an early GMP for that one as well already. Transportation Center, Lewisville High School's Scene Shop, our Harmon Black Box Theater, and our district-wide generators and radio systems. Those would then follow up as consent items in the June regular board meeting. Any questions for our 2023 bond update?
Are there any questions, comments? All right, keep going.
All right, I will keep rolling. So, got to wait for the next one. There we go. All right, so for our 2024 bond program update, first we have the guaranteed maximum price for the Hebron High School baseball and softball field renovation project. So Stantec is the architect on this one. Joris is the CMAR. Joris advertised and bid out the project to subcontractors. Again, they've evaluated and scoped the bids. They provided a GMP of $2,355,928. In order to meet that, we need an additional $1.3 million. A recommendation to approve this GMP will be presented as a consent item next Monday night, and work would begin this summer. So I listed here a little bit about the scope of the project. It's pretty basic. It's the things we had always talked about, right? So it's concrete in between the 2 fields, new bleachers, new press box. These are elevated seating at the baseball, softball fields, which matches our other high school locations. We also have some drainage improvements that we're looking to make to prevent ponding against the backstops. New fencing to secure the venue, concession stand interior refresh, a refresh to the storage buildings. We've got a portal, which I've got a little picture of here, and our concessions and dugout metal roofs. So many of these items were identified in the facilities assessment. The rest of them were definitely scoped that we feel is necessary to bring this facility up to current standard with other high schools. So part of the reason the number came in a little bit higher is I think the concrete scope was a little bit more than we had budgeted for originally. But as we got out there and really started to take a look at, okay, where do we stop, right? What concrete needs to be replaced? We feel like this is the appropriate amount of concrete to replace, and it's more than we had originally budgeted for, but I think the end product will definitely be a lot better. Also, the bleachers, the pricing for bleachers, obviously, as just like everything else, has gone up a little bit as well. Those are the 2 major components of a project like this. Here is an image of, when we talked about kind of an entryway. There's an entry there now. However, it's in kind of an odd location, and so this really kind of centers that in between the 2 fields. It makes one point of entry for that venue there, and it should be a very nice addition. You can see in the background there the new press box on the baseball field. as well. Okay, so our next one is engineer selection for the 2024 bond First Sale High School Stadium lighting replacement. So the project will replace the field lighting at all 5 high school stadiums with new LED fixtures and color capability. The project must be designed by an architect or an engineer. So CMTA is one of our engineers on our RFQ. They've recently completed stadium lighting design projects in the state of Texas. They have the knowledge and expertise needed to complete this project. And so our recommendation to approve CMTA as the engineer will be presented next Monday night as a consent item. Then we have the high school baseball, softball field lighting upgrades. This was actually a CSP that we put out. So McAdams is the engineer on this project. This project was bid out again as a competitive sealed proposal. We had 1,258 invitations sent out. We got 7 bids received, which was a good number of bidders, we felt. Those bids have been evaluated, and a recommendation to award will be presented as a consent item next Monday night. We are asking, so this project is in budget. It's actually a very good pricing. We are asking for a little bit higher percentage on our contingency for this project because we feel like the normal 10% that we ask for, because we're spread out amongst 9 different fields, that can go pretty quick, just to any unforeseen conditions. So you will see a little bit higher percentage on the contingency. So next steps for 2024 bond. We have the 3 things that I just spoke about tonight. We'll come back for consent items next week, and nothing for June as of now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for 2024 bond.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. On the overage for the Hebron, where are we anticipating that come from? Do we have that within contingency, land sales? Where's that coming from?
Great question. I'm glad you asked that. I should have mentioned that already. So in our 2024 bond, if you remember, we had to break it up into kind of 3 different propositions, right? This is a Proposition B project, and we've done very well on some recent Prop B projects. We actually have quite a substantial amount of savings on the turf project that was recently awarded, and so our recommendation would be to pull some of that funding. It has to be spent on a Prop B project, and so you can't really spend it for football stadium or for natatorium or anything like that. So that would be our recommendation.
Are you going to promise me that Hebron will no longer have drainage problems once we pour 5 billion square feet of concrete and the turf and all the things?
We are going to do our best to eliminate all that.
Just please try to determine if there's a natural underwater source.
Yes, ma'am. I've heard many
times.
Dig
deep.
Right.
Just so we can eliminate that before we start just pouring concrete on top.
Right. Maybe bottle it up. Yeah.
I'm with Ms. Lasan. There's a funding opportunity to sell the water.
Right.
Yeah, please.
We are trying our best.
Just
absolutely.
beg of you.
I have a question.
Dr. Bonner.
Mr. Fite, you've been employed in the district in a couple of different episodes. Did your employment predate Hebron, or was it after Hebron was built?
After.
Okay, thank you.
And I will ask on the lighting for the football fields. What's that timeline look like? Like, are we going to have Friday night lights?
For the football fields?
For the football fields.
No, I think, having to go back out for design and out for rebid, I don't think we're going to make the beginning of football season, so probably want to wait till after. We don't really want to mess around with them during the middle of the season. Now, the baseball, softball, however, that should be ready for the baseball, softball.
Because their season's later than football.
Yes.
All right.
And soccer will have, the lots will be there for soccer for sure. Yeah.
And track and field.
Right.
All the good things. All right. Thank you very much,
All right,
Mr.
thank
Fite.
you.
Meal prices for the 2025-2026 school year.
All right. Kim Stafford is coming up to present this item.
Thanks for having me back to talk a little bit more about our child nutrition program. And this is the wrong, oh no, it's right, you're right. Sorry, it's been a lot. So to provide a little bit of background to start out into our meal prices, we are required to follow USDA guidelines for establishing student and adult meal prices. This does not include any guidelines from federal or state laws around a la carte pricing. USDA requirements do not apply to that at all, so that'll be a local decision that we review every summer with our food vendor, and so we'll do that shortly and raise where we can, maybe, lower some prices where we can as well. A little historical meal price data for you guys. The last time we actually increased breakfast, I accidentally highlighted the wrong box here, so I wanted to point that out, was 21.22. We went up 10 cents to $1.35. Since then, we've seen, increasing costs, so we want to really consider breakfast especially. And then in 22.23 for both our adult and lunch meal prices as well. One more thing I wanted to point out here is if you can, as most of you remember, from 23.24 to 24.25, we did not increase our prices, and that was due to our excessive fund balance to help us kind of spin that down a little bit. Comparison districts to give us an idea of where we are currently at to those districts compared to those districts around us. As you can see, our green is the average of those that we've compared ourselves to. And that's $1.71 for breakfast. We're at $1.35, and $1.80 at the secondary, also at $1.35. So well below the average and definitely nowhere near the top for breakfast pricing for sure. Lunch looks pretty similar. So average comparison for lunch at elementaries is $3 and $3.39 per paid lunch at our secondaries. And we're at $2.85 compared to that $3 and $3.10 compared to the $3.39. So again, below average and definitely well below the highest districts too. One of the items that seems to come out quite a bit is why can't we serve our meals all for free through the CEP program? And so some of our districts, Dallas, Mesquite, they do serve all of their meals free. It just works out for them financially, so they're able to take advantage of that program, and so we look into that actively, and we'll share if that's something we should consider. So we will be back on your docket Monday for consideration on a consent item to increase our meal prices all around at 30 cents is what we're recommending. TDA does require us to meet a certain amount. We're 89 cents under in our lunches, so this gets us much closer to where we need to be. We are required to do at least 10, but as you can see, we're pretty far behind, so we'll be asking for a little bit more than that for your consideration on Monday. Questions?
Any questions? Dr. Barker?
So one of the reasons that we didn't raise prices was because of our balance. We've been spending that down, but do you anticipate that that's going to cause that balance to then rise again? And so we're going to hold steady for a while? Like, what are you anticipating the impact of that increased pricing to be?
So if we go with the 30 cents across the board, the increased revenue will be about $630,000. If we look at how much our increased CPI increase to our vendor Aramark is at 3%, that's about half of that. Then if we consider raises for next year coming out of Child Nutrition Fund, that will eat up the remaining balance at just 3%. So our cost and equipment's also going up, so this actually gets us right to where we'll still be breaking even, similar to our budget this year.
Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you so much for the presentation. Next up, fiscal year 25 budget projection update, M&O.
All right, so tonight we'll continue to look at our update for fiscal year 25, continuing to update our revenue and expenditure projections. And so taking a look at our updated revenue assumptions for the year, for the first one, enrollment, the budget was based on 48,100. You'll see we went down at snapshot, and we've continued to go down since then. So as of April 30th, our enrollment was 47,024, so we're 851 students lower than we were at snapshot. Moving over to estimated ADA, you'll see we updated that through the fifth 6 weeks, which was 44,555. Over the last few years, we've seen on average about a 30 ADA decline over the last 6 weeks, so we lowered our end-of-year projection to 44,525. On the property values for the T2 value, the first value is the number that we used when we adopted the budget. Then the second number is the preliminary value that we've received from the comptroller, and we've talked about that in previous meetings where that was significantly higher than what we were anticipating. And then the third number there is the corrected value that's been submitted by DCAD to the comptroller. And so we're waiting to hear back from the comptroller. Unfortunately, it probably won't be until after the year ends when we'll determine if those corrected values are actually what is changed. And so, we'll just kind of, I guess, see over the next few months, how that's going to impact things. But unfortunately, as I said, we won't know until after the year is over. On the adopted revenue side, our adopted budget was $556.5 million. We're currently projecting, and this is through March, revenue of $542 million. That would be about 2.5% less than what we budgeted. The majority of that decrease is in state revenue, and the decrease of almost $11 million is because of our enrollment decline and also because our T2 values being higher than what was projected. On the expenditure assumptions, we're still tracking fairly close to what we budgeted for recapture. After the fifth 6 weeks, looking at about $13.1 million. On payroll, we are right on what we budgeted. So, and some of that is because it includes the one-time payment. If that was not included, then we would see some savings in there. On the non-payroll side, we're seeing some significant savings right now, and you'll see that on the next slide. We're currently projecting expenditure savings of over $16 million, which is almost 3% of our budget, so that helps make up for the revenue being under. Most of that is through supplies, travel. We're seeing some utility savings, and so just great work by the campuses and departments to just continue to monitor their spending throughout the year and trying to provide as much savings as possible. So as a reminder, the adopted budget included a deficit of $4.5 million. And so we have two scenarios that we're going to continue to track throughout the remainder of this year. The first one is what our projection would be if there's no change to the preliminary T2 values. And so if those values are not changed, we'd be looking at a deficit of about $10.7 million, which would be close to the adopted deficit plus the one-time pay. We'd be in that ballpark. If the T2 values are corrected, then that's a pretty big swing because there is such a difference in those T2 values. So then we would be looking at a surplus of about $3 million. So, which would be great from where we started, but as I mentioned, unfortunately, we're not going to know that, at least on the T2 value side, until after the year ends. But we will, continue to update this each month, as with our updated revenues expenditures. Each month, this is going to become more and more accurate of a projection. We'll continue to monitor our spending. We have set a July 31st purchase order cutoff deadline to allow the campuses a little bit of time once they return at the end of the summer to put in orders, but enough time to help clear those out so that we're not encumbering any funds and rolling any over into the next fiscal year. We'll continue to monitor our attendance for the last few weeks of the school year. Continuing to look at our property tax collections. We don't have a lot that comes through at the remainder of the year, but there is still a little bit, so we'll continue to track that. We will reclassify any capital-like expenditures that we can to our land sale account. Right now, we really haven't had much this year, but we'll continue to monitor that. And then, the last thing is just to make sure that we maintain our goal that the board has of 25% of expenditures in fund balance, which, as a reminder, just helps us cover the expenditures that we have at the start of the year before we start receiving property tax collections. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Could I get you to clarify, because you say end of the year, and there's like three that we talk about. There's a school year, there's a fiscal year, and there's a calendar year. So which one of those year ends were you referring to for the T2 values?
That would be the end of the fiscal year. So we should...
So we won't know until September, yes, because our fiscal year ends August 31st.
That's correct. And so we really probably won't see that our projected funding changed until we get our near final runs, and those begin in September.
And then that's when we do that funny math where we reverse it back to the previous year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Bonner?
So we've appealed those T2 values, right?
Yes, we've submitted corrections.
Oh, submitted corrections, okay. And did the comptroller give us any sort of timeline? I know you said something a moment ago, but what's that correspondence been like?
The latest that I'd heard was we won't hear anything back until August.
And he'll be gone by then, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, well, all right, thank you.
Carry on.
All right, so the next item is the regular board meeting consent agenda preview. So this month, the month of May, we have a significant number of consent agenda items, and so just wanted to kind of provide a few highlights of some items of interest. And so a few of those will be items that were discussed a little bit earlier tonight, but I did want to highlight student transportation services. And so as we transition to managing that program in-house, there's a need to start purchasing some equipment, some supplies that we don't currently have. And so over the next few months, you'll see purchases for, could be software for routing or for real vehicle tracking. It could be supplies, whether that's parts, tires, whatever we would need to operate the facility, the equipment, the buses. Also, the purchase of utility service vehicles, which help provide roadside assistance. And so you'll see these items coming through, this month, and they may continue in the upcoming months as well. And we will be bringing a June budget amendment to the board that will help us cover some of these items that were not included in the adopted budget. And then the last one that I wanted to highlight is the renewal of the food service management company. And so we've contracted that service out for the last 25 years, since 2000. In 2022, the board awarded a contract with Aramark, and if approved, this would be the third renewal of a 5-year term with Aramark.
Any comments, questions? All right. Fiscal year 26 budget.
Okay, so we are continuing to take a look at the fiscal year 26 budget and look at our estimated values that we just received in April, how that could impact our tax compression, looking at our fiscal year 26 forecast, and then also discuss some compensation. So we received our preliminary values from DCAD and from TAD in April. And so here is an illustration of our values over the last few years. You'll see a pretty significant increase from 2022 up to 2024. And then there was actually a decrease in 24 to 25, and that's due to a change in the homestead exemption. So our April values in 2024, we're still using the $40,000 homestead exemption, and then after we received those values later on that year, that was changed to $100,000. And so that's why you'll see that decrease. And then so this year, from last April to this April, it's an increase of about 3.5%. So as we begin working on projections for next year and determining what our property tax collections will be, that's based on what our certified values will be. Well, we will not receive our certified values until right around July 25th. And so in order to do our projections, we need to come up with what we think our certified values will be. And so to get there, we take a look at our April preliminary values and what the correlation is in the past between April and certified. And so you'll see for the year that I just mentioned, it was difficult to use that year because April was much higher than certified due to the homestead exemption change. But last year we could look at that, and the certified percentage was just under 91% of the April values. And so there's going to be appeals and protests that are taking place, after we receive the April values. And so those values will be, decreased before they get to certified. And so if we use that same almost 91%, based on our April preliminary values of $69.9 billion, that would give us a projected certified value for this year of $63.6 billion. And so that we would use that, as I mentioned, to calculate what we think our property tax collections for next year would be. Now, that certified also would be used to help calculate what we think our T2 value is going to be for next year, and our T2 value is what helps drive our state funding. And so same methodology, we would look at what was the certified value for the last few years versus the T2 value and see what that relationship is. And so the last 2 years, the years prior to that, there was quite a bit of change, I will say, back and forth. But the last 2 years have been very, comparable. And so looking at 92.8, 92.7. So taking the average of those two for next year, using 92.76%. And so we would take that and multiply that times our certified value estimate to give us what we think our T2 value estimate would be. And so that T2 value estimate would be $59 billion. And so you'll see, kind of the pattern. I wanted to look at the last few years as well. So that would be an increase of about $2.6 billion from last year, and then about $2 billion for this year. So it's in the same neighborhood to help us give a projection for next year's budget. So things that we'll continue to look at for next year's budget, we've talked about this in the prior months, but we, continue to have a decline in enrollment, and how will that impact our budget? What can be done for compensation to make sure we remain competitive? What changes will come out of the legislative session? I mean, right now, there's still not a lot of movement on most of the funding bills, and so as we go through this, it's just using the funding runs that we're receiving from Moat Casey, from TASBO, to kind of help guide some forecasting. But at this time, it's still a guess on where the legislative session will end up. Continuing to look for revenue opportunities, ways that we can increase our revenue, while also looking for ways that we can cut back. And then, just as a reminder, our T2 value for fiscal year 26 could be higher depending on how the corrected values for 25 come out. So if those are higher, then that's going to change that percentage a little bit, and so that could impact what we're projecting for next year. So looking at the revenue assumptions, we're projecting enrollment of 46,402. That would be 622 students down from where we were on April 30th. ADA projection of 43,815. That would be a decrease of 710 from our current year, end of year projection, which is the decline that we saw from the previous year. The T2 value that we discussed on a previous slide. And then the tax rate, using that T2 value and our calculated property tax collections, we would see some compression. So since our growth is higher than the 2.5% that's needed for property tax rate compression, we would be looking right now at projecting about a 2-cent M&O compression. We won't have that information until we get our certified values, and then we have to send that information off to TEA, and then they'll actually calculate the maximum compressed rate that we can adopt. We looked at this previously, but this just is an illustration of our enrollment in our ADA over the last few years. And then under current law, this slide takes a look at what funding impact we would see based on declining enrollment and also our projected increase in property value. So on the state funding side, versus what was adopted, we would see a state funding decline of almost $16 million. While also seeing our recapture go up by about $1.5 million. On the expenditure side, using the T2 values and the taxable information that we have or that we're projecting, we'd be projecting a recapture payment of $14.3 million. Our budget for payroll right now, we're estimating at $450.5 million. That would be an increase of $12.5 million. But I've highlighted in here, in addition to some decreases that we've addressed and that we'll talk about in an upcoming slide, but this would also include moving subs and transportation from contracted to payroll. So that's why the payroll costs would be increasing. Now, on the flip side, the non-payroll would be going down because we've moved the contracted services out of there. So this next slide will take a look at what our projected beginning fiscal year 26 deficit is estimated at this point. So we would need to start with what our current budget deficit was for this current fiscal year. So our fiscal year 25 budget deficit is $4.5 million. And so if nothing else changes, we would just move those revenue budgets and those expenditure budgets forward to fiscal year 26. So without any additional revenue or decrease to expenditures, we would have the same adopted deficit as we had this year. As I mentioned on previous slide, state funding loss due to the decline in enrollment and increase in property values would be about $16 million. So that would put us close to about a little over $20 million deficit right off the bat. There are some other additional revenue sources that we budget for that we feel it'd be best to decrease those. The first one would be SHARS, which we receive funding for services that we provide to our Medicaid-eligible students. We've seen that due to changes in what you can submit for reimbursement over the last few years. We've seen that significantly decrease. The district used to be receiving $7 to $8 million per year. We're now down to we've actually only received about $1 million this year, and so we did reduce the budget for this year. Looking at that, but currently our budget's $2 million. So at this time, I don't think we're going to meet that. So it's bringing our budget for next year down closer to what this year's actuals are. Same thing on interest revenue. The last few years, we've been significantly over what we budget for interest, which is great, and that's helped us, offset some of the other shortages. However, rates have been cut and will continue to be cut is what's being forecasted. And so this is just, slowly bringing that budget down a little bit year by year and not having to do it all at once. And so looking to just reduce that by $1 million for next year. Increase to recapture payment that I mentioned. The next line is an increase to set up transportation budget. This is a little over $2 million. And this is just the difference between what we currently were budgeting and paying for contracted versus what we believe that the cost will be or what we're estimating at this time. That number is very fluid. It's going to depend on hiring and how many staff are hired, what they're paid, obviously. It's going to depend on what supplies we need, and there may be other funding sources for software potentially. And so right now, that's just kind of maybe the maximum estimate that I would say that we would need in next year's budget. The very small increase to substitute budget just to help increase a little bit the rates that we're paying for subs. And then we would see some additional property tax collections due to values going up. And so right now, that would give us a projected beginning deficit of $24.5 million. We've talked about this in the last few meetings, but this is illustration of just salary increase scenarios that we've talked about. A lot of this, could be dependent on what comes out of Austin. If there's legislation out there, House Bill 2, if we receive additional increase to basic allotment, then the district will be required to do a certain compensation increase. It's 40% of that additional gain in funding that we receive. And then of that 40%, 75% needs to be earmarked for teachers, librarians, counselors, nurses. And so, that could help drive some of that decision, but, just kind of waiting to see what comes out of Austin. And so here are the most recent House Bill 2 funding projections that we received from both TASBO and Moat Casey. They use a little bit different T2 estimates, a little bit different tax rate estimates and ADA, but you'll see, the amount of increase in funding for next year. And so that brings us to, as of now, what we would project as our fiscal year 26 deficit. So we would start with the beginning deficit of $24.5 million. Dr. Rapp's going to talk about budget reductions in an upcoming slide, but right now we've identified about $11.4 million of reductions for next year. So that would bring our deficit after reductions down to $13 million. Taking a 3% raise for staff, that would add $11.4 million to the budget. So that would give us a deficit before any help from Austin of $24.4 million. Looking at the House Bill 2 potential funding, I took the lower amount, which is Moat Casey, of $21.7 million. And so that would bring us to a potential fiscal year 26 deficit of $2.7 million, which, if everything came through the way that, it is here, that would be a little bit lower than what was adopted for this year. And then in addition to House Bill 2, there are some other bills that could provide additional funding for the district. There are 2 bills out there that we're tracking that would impact the school safety allotment. Senate Bill 260 would provide an increase in the allotment from $10 to $28 per student and from $15,000 to $30,000 per campus. This would increase our school safety allotment by $1.6 million. That is not included in the previous projection. The House version would increase the allotment to $14 per student and $37,000 per campus, and this would be an increase to our allotment of $1.4 million.
So we discussed last month the recommendations of the Board Program and Budget Review Committee. Those remain unchanged. I just have them here again on this slide. We are moving forward with all of these things, as hard as it is and as difficult as the conversations are around changes to library aides and district level social workers and the general ed behavior interventionists, the parent notes from 10 to 5, all of those things. We have all of these things in progress, which is how we're estimating that $11.4 million in savings. And then, of course, we would be studying, as I talked about last month, this coming school year, our counselor staffing model and ratios and our fine arts and athletic staffing models. I appreciate our staff really working to understand the financial situation we're in, as much as I consistently have to communicate with them about the next round of changes that we need to make. People continually tell me, thank you for the communication. We appreciate you keeping us updated. And we're just going to continue to do everything we can, I know, to advocate for that important change with the basic allotment, with those changes with House Bill 2. So the next steps on this fiscal year 26, there's just a lot to be monitoring and staying on top of. We'll continue to provide updates, and Scott will provide the update with the certified values in July. And of course, we would submit the local property value study and receive what our actual compressed rate is from TEA in order to know what that's looking like. And with that, we'll turn it back over.
Any comments or questions? Dr. Taylor.
My comment is what we've been doing all along is advocating and making an appeal to our representatives to push forward the increase to the basic allotment. It's not what we really needed. I think we needed about $1,400, but right now we need something. And looking at this budget, if we don't get that something, we are in, I mean, we're already in dire straits. We're in even more dire straits without an increase. We're counting on that. We're counting on you to be good partners with us. And so I'm just appealing to them, appealing to the voters, our community, to reach out to our representatives, because don't leave us hanging. The same with the bills on teacher compensation. Don't leave us hanging. Please don't leave us hanging. As you can see, we can't afford it. So that's my comment.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't remember when this was or what it was in relation to, but at some point we had some graphs that showed how the scenarios would affect our fund balance. Particularly in terms of what our policy says versus what those scenarios would do. I'd love to see these scenarios graphed that way so that we can take a look at, what each of these does to our fund balance. Because not only is there regulations around that, but we have our own policies around what we need to keep in fund balance. And as you mentioned, that's important for us to stay solvent as a district before those property values come in. And then I agree, right now the funding bill is stuck in committee. And so we need our legislators and our faithful advocates to call those legislators and tell them to figure it out and get it out of committee, and let's get a vote on it, because like you said, it's not all that we need, but it's something that can help us move forward. The other thing that's just, this number is just crazy to me. So our loss, hold on, I'm getting there. The state funding loss due to decline in enrollment and increase to property values, just under 16 million, while our increase in collections is 1.6. So we don't benefit from the rising costs of property. And with those two rates put together, that's under $1. Under $1 for the education of our children. So I go back to earlier in the evening with our conversations with LEF about how do we think about alternative revenues for our district to be able to compensate where the state is failing us. Because I will tell you, I was about to say early on in my tenure as a board member, which was like a year ago. It feels like more than that, but I would get really frustrated when we would sit up here on the dais and say the legislature this and the legislature that. And the situation that the legislature has put us in is we're going to have to look for ways to help ourselves. We're not going to be able to count on them to help us. So I look forward to seeing where we go with the partnership with LEF and seeing how we can create some alternative streams of revenue that we can, the phrase that Lori borrowed was find some financial freedom.
Dr. Taylor.
I forgot to add or ask if there was a corporate partner out there that wanted to sponsor the buses. So I was like, if we could find a sponsor for transportation, put your name on the buses. Let's talk about that.
Are there any other comments or questions? I do have a question in regard to some of our assumptions for fiscal year 26. And that is currently Ms. Cobb is running at a 99.9% fill rate. Do we want to adjust that for fiscal year 26? I mean, she's killing it and killing us at the same time.
Yeah, and we could look at that. I mean, we would have had a little bit, as I mentioned, a little bit more savings this current year without the one time, but we'll be able to continue to update that throughout the hiring process to see exactly what we think that payroll number needs to be. But yeah, we definitely could look at that.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to highlight the approximate 7% delta between DCAD's values that we set the tax rate on in July. We get those in July, we set the tax rate in August, and the T2 values that are 7% less by the state. So that's the delta, right? And that's the delta of funding. I would say it's, I'll go out on the branch and say it's a duplication of services. We're behind the 8 ball on. We're on the opposite side, Dr. Bonner.
Well, you've broken loose a rant, Ms. Prosnick. That's the problem with the current funding mechanism, right? The district is here, Mr. Ritter's here working feverishly to project what our revenue may be, our local revenue may be, and then and also project what the T2 values will be based on past practice. And what's that gotten us? Well, it's gotten us a revised T2 value this year which is going to throw us $10 million in the hole if it's not rectified. I mean, don't answer this, it's rhetorical, but how confident are you that your projection for this year is going to match the projection for next year, which already on the very presentation is $1 billion off, right? So, I mean, you talk about a dysfunctional system. Pick a value, either one, a local one or a state one, but pick a value and fund to that. Because otherwise, every district in the state is potentially in this situation. Man, that's a terrible way to run a railroad. So there's my rant. Thank you, Jenny, for lodging that loose.
See if I can lodge any more with this. That is why when the legislature says, but we made you whole, they made us whole on T2 values, not on our appraisal district values, and that is why we came in once again behind the 8 ball after the legislature said they were going to make us whole. That's the delta. I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but that's the delta. And that is the frustration of trying to do a budget. It's like throwing a dart in a dark room. I don't know where the target is, because it seems as though the target does change depending on who you're talking to. And that's what makes it so hard for ISDs to do a true comprehensive budget. It's what also the legislature and the way we're funded, it makes it hard for us to do a 3-year projection or a 4-year projection or a 5-year projection that I've heard some agencies talk about doing. Great for you. I have to rely every 2 years on the gentleman down in Austin to decide what exactly we're going to look like. Dr. Barker.
I was trying not to interrupt. I was over here just holding my little finger up because you were on it. But you lodged something loose in me too, because I've been thinking about the conversations that I'm hearing certain legislatures have about the runs that they're getting and what they're seeing in terms of what we're going to get based on whatever bill it is that they're analyzing, right? Lewisville ISD is going to get this much money. But they haven't sat down with us to look at this chart that says, okay, great. The bill's going to add this much into our funding, but that doesn't take into account that we're also going to have to give a certain amount of that in a raise, which affects not only our budget this year, but next year and hereafter. That doesn't take into account the deficit that we already have from last year because we didn't get any funding from the last legislative session. It never showed up after 4 special sessions. It doesn't take into account the increased recapture that is happening within our district. So that one number that shows up on a run doesn't take all of this into account. So I would ask our legislators to listen. Listen. When we tell you, this is what we need. Thank you for what you're trying to add to the basic allotment, but it doesn't cover all this. Thank you.
Ms. Sells.
I just sit here and you mentioned how long we've been sitting here, and it's, wow, going into a decade. Think about it. And I think back when we first got on here, you know, there was a statement made by the courts on the Texas funding system that was awful by law, but lawful. Yeah, awful, but lawful. And I sit here through these last 3 terms that we have served on, and it's as if people that make those decisions and could have taken that as maybe we need to review what we're doing and make some positive changes. I think they looked at that judge and said, oh, well, by golly, I'll take that as a compliment, and have done nothing. And in fact, have really created two more funding mechanisms that I don't see how we are going to sustain as a state. And so, and here's where I'm going to put it. I'm not going to blame the legislators. I'm going to blame the voters. You voted for people who are doing what they said they were going to do. And so I just asked that, and I said this to some of my colleagues, that those of you who proclaim faith, that maybe you not need to look at that Bible verse that says, for the least of these, in your interpretation of the elitist of these. And I truly believe that they're making decisions based on different interpretations, as I see. But I will tell you that every time, and I hate this, Mr. Rare, but after you give us our projections, somehow that song, and I'm going to date myself here, but that song from Hee Haw of doom, despair, and agony on me plays on a continual loop in my brain. So it just, I'm like, how desperate do we have to get that we actually see something? So yes, please move what money you're going to give us out of committee and get this passed. This is just, I really did not believe that I would sit here. I believe that, yeah, you got what you want, so let's push through. I didn't realize that the brakes would be put on. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'll try not to look at you in the shape of Grandpa anymore. So thanks.
I will let Ms. Sells be the last word on that. Up next, drawing the short straw after that presentation, is the technology report. Mr. Kolbeck.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. We have some brief updates tonight. Last month, we came and gave a 23 bond update on technology projects. So some of this we foreshadowed a little bit last month. I've asked David Kuntz to come up and also participate in this. He has a few items specific to some of our enterprise applications. So just a reminder, again, this is related to the 23 bond. This would be our INS bucket of monies, again, supported by the voters during that 23 bond project. So this first item is regarding our Skyward ERP cumulative project, and David's going to speak a little bit about the time tracking module, which I shared a little bit about last month. But go ahead, David.
So the district's used Kronos for electronic time tracking for many years now. The version of Kronos that we currently have has a set end of life in just under 2 years now. So we would have to transition one way or the other to a new platform for our electronic timekeeping. The newer version of Kronos that we would go to would be a significant cost increase to the district. However, when we were in the process of working through the ERP contract negotiations, they have a time tracking module we evaluated. They recommended we didn't implement it as part of the initial core implementation, that we implement the core ERP first, and then we could bring it on later if we chose to. We wanted to evaluate and make sure that that's what we wanted to do. But as part of the contract, purchasing was able to negotiate pricing for an option to add the time tracking module to the Skyward ERP system. So this is really just bringing forward that we want to move forward with a recommendation to implement the Skyward cumulative time tracking module. This would, again, not only would it reduce the potential future costs of going to a different, newer version of Kronos, but actually it would save us money annually from what we currently spend on Kronos by implementing the time tracking module. So it represents a cost savings, and it's also some gained efficiencies by combining it into the ERP system itself, doing the time tracking internally in that system. So there's benefits there. We're also planning to utilize iPads for the physical time clocks. So we're working with Skyward to use an app based on iPads. We can use iPads from our existing fleet to reduce costs because the proprietary clocks that come with timekeeping systems are typically very expensive, $2,500 to $4,500 a piece. So iPads, while not cheap, are significantly cheaper, and we already have a large fleet of those, so we can use some of our existing devices for that, we are hoping. So we are planning to bring that forward as a recommendation with the time tracking module, but then there may be some additional costs associated with the hardware, mounts for iPads, things like that, adapters, that we may bring forward at a later meeting as well as a separate recommendation.
Keep moving on, and we'll go through the Student Information System project management. So go ahead, David.
So similarly to what we did with the ERP system, Student Information System project is a huge project. You approved moving forward with that back in the fall. We're going to be ramping that project up over the next couple of months as we head into basically the year prior to go live, which is in the summer of 2026. So similar to the ERP project, we're wanting to explore bringing on some additional resources, project management, et cetera, to help make sure that we are successful in this implementation project. The SIS implementation is going to impact everyone across the district, whether it's staff, teachers, parents, students. Everybody interacts with the SIS, so we want to make sure that we are covered from a resources perspective. Everybody on the team currently has a full-time job supporting the current SIS, so we just want to make sure that all the bases are covered. So this is, we put an RFP out to solicit vendors offering these kinds of services to see what we get back. We're also going to evaluate what the best value would be to the district, whether it's pursuing those contracted services through a third party or whether we do some type of direct hire of resources to address these specific project needs.
All right, so next steps as we look forward into May consent. Some of these items you've already seen over the last couple months. So for May consent, you're going to see the network file share storage project coming in as consent, the cybersecurity updates, as well as our program-specific device replacement plan. I've also mentioned and also put in the board letter we have an addendum to the cellular distributed antenna system. We've got a change in what was originally approved. That'll come forward in May as well as consent. And as David said, the ERP time tracking module. As we look forward into June, I have in here tentative, and I would say this is strongly tentative, would be the private LTE project. We're working through the procurement process, and if we can do it, which you'll see in a little bit, this would also be as a consent item if we can pull it all together. Obviously, there's no board meeting in July. It's a project that we think would help us in operations, safety, and security, but I think it's a reach to see if we can pull that off by June, but we're trying. In addition to that, we're bringing back another round of Apple residual value. That one we definitely would like to bring back. The sooner we can get that approved and out the door, the better the returns typically. So when we look at June consent, as I said, tentative for LTE, Apple residual value would be recommended item as consent in June. And then as David already shared, the results of what we feel is the best value for the student information, project management, and staffing. So with that, if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer.
Any comments or questions, Dr. Parker?
Just very briefly, after the budget conversation that we just had, hearing you use the word cost savings about 5 different times within that was very heartening, and that's something that we always hear from the technology department. Where can we be more efficient? Where can we get cost savings? Where can we get residual value? So thank you for your diligence in continuing to do that.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you all waiting so long. Next up is the Board of Trustees report. Are there any board chairs who have a report to make? Dr. Taylor.
Madam President, thank you. I'll have the board recall that the committee had received, after the consolidation of schools had been announced, the committee had received requests around the naming of Hebron Valley related to Posure. With that being said, at a later board meeting, the committee referred that item, and the committee, is made up of all the doctors, myself, Dr. Bonner, and Dr. Barker. We referred that item to the Hebron Valley Focus Connection Committee, and we received a report out from them asking or proposing that the school, that Hebron Valley be named LISD STEM Academy at Hebron Valley, and that the outside green space be named Posure Pavilion. With that being said, there's not really a pavilion, so to speak. It's a green space, but they are coming up for a 20-year refresh, and we're hoping as a part of that, that we'll have a smaller project to have a pavilion, if you will. So that is the recommendation of our committee.
When will you be bringing that to the board, full board, for a vote? When are you asking for that to be on the agenda?
I would love for it to be on the agenda for next Monday, if that's doable.
We can make that happen.
All right. For my committee members, did I miss anything?
Oh, one of your doctors has something to say.
I just wanted to say that we really appreciated the work that the committee did to come up with this as a proposal. I think it honored both campuses very well, and that's why we have those committees, to be able to determine how the legacy of those campuses is handled.
Agreed. Thank you to the committee, and it keeps the naming of the STEM schools consistent with what we've done throughout the district.
Very exciting. All right. With that, the board will once again convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 074, and the time is 9:33 p.m. We will now reconvene into open session. The time is 10:32 p.m. Next on the agenda is consider action on items discussed in closed session. Consider action on the superintendent contract. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells.
I move that the board approve the superintendent contract as discussed in closed session.
Do I have a second? Dr. Bonner. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Vote carries 7-0. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned and the time is 10:33 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.